Okay, so next we proceed on to A minus tier. The characters in this tier, they have obvious strengths as well as fairly obvious weaknesses, but overall, their strengths can more or less, I should say largely make up for their weaknesses, but their weaknesses are notable nonetheless. Starting off with A plus tier, I mean A minus tier, we have Lucky Guy. Now, take the stats that are shown for Lucky Guy in the document with more than a grain of salt, because as we know, Lucky Guy was heavily nerfed in the middle of the previous season. His overall peak tier pick rate is still pretty high at 3.2%, which is 7th place, with a win rate of 19.8% at 25th place. He has a peak tier draw rate of 29.5% at 16th place, and a ban rate of 2.6% at 11th place. By the way, to some people, those ban rates, as well as for the characters that we have gone through previously, are pretty low. That is because this isn't actually the ban rate for, as in, like, how likely the character is going to be banned in a game. This is how likely a character is going to be banned for one slot. So since there are 3 ban slots for the hunter, the real likelihood that the character doesn't get to be played in the game should be like this value times 3. Anyway, his S1 knowledge points value is very high at just over 30k, and his A100 knowledge points value is 11,665 at 2nd place. Of course, due to his previous nerf, his overall value has dropped quite a bit. But it remains true that he is perhaps one of the only survivors in the game who can actively create like an information difference with the hunter. So normally the hunter can pick based on the survivor team, right? They can counter pick actively since hunters pick after the survivors pick. But for Lucky Guy, combined with how now hunter icons are revealed at the start of the match during area selection, Lucky Guy can always pick the correct item to properly counter the hunter. So that's still like an irreplaceable ability and a very important role that Lucky Guy can fulfill. He has a pretty high support performance ceiling with flare gun plus flashlight. I've been disgusted by it before. Quite annoying, honestly. Without carrying out support, wishing for bot still allows him to contribute to overall team decoding progress, even though the bot durability has been nerfed. Having like a pseudo 5th person on the team to do a bit of decoding, maybe half a cipher, is still like very good for the team. Despite how he has been nerfed in terms of like the chest opening speed in later stages of the game, the fact that he can always get what he wants kind of offsets the increased chair opening time in the first place. I'm sure for your survivor players out here watching this video, you have definitely encountered the situation, the classic situation, where you're at half health but you got a perfume from a chest, and when you're at full health you get a syringe from a chest. Very classic situation. Zeus, I'm sure you've met that same situation before. But
Pisses me
Lucky Guy,
off.
can avoid this by wishing for the item that he wants. Yeah. But this character still is like pretty weak early game. You only have like a lucky packet at the start. Compared to basically every other survivor, your kiting ability is still pretty limited. You kind of have to open a chest. But in mid to late game, if you can properly make use of your tools, you can still give hunters a hard time. Yeah, so as well as the fact that even though you can indeed get the item that you want in later stages of the game, just because of how much the chest opening speed has been extended, you need to plan your items like more carefully instead of just spamming whatever seems to be useful.
I mean, I guess to give my thoughts, I guess it's like I can't really disagree with anything, because even I've I played Lucky Guy during obviously the peak of his I guess brokenness, when he was like being spammed the most. And it's just one of these things where it's just like, unfortunately, the nerfs did get to him. There is just, that reality. The nerfs did get him, guys. The nerfs did get him. I feel like, though, maybe you could still argue the fact that he could be higher, I guess. Like, it does say, obviously, in the rating adjustment, middle to A plus to top of A minus. So maybe for my personal preference, like if there was an A tier, like just slap dab middle A tier, I'd probably put him there. But for the sake of this, I think maybe I would just put him in A plus, simply because obviously being able to pick and choose what you want with the parcel and whatnot. And then, you know, obviously being able to, technically speaking, have any item that you could have at your disposal. I think that is just the ability that you kind of can't disregard to some degree, as much as I would want to give value to that. But other than that, it's just like, I can't really disagree, because it's like, yeah, man, it's like, it's kind of like with Prospector, except Prospector at least has his item always on hand 24/7 and doesn't need to go out of his way. And, you know, obviously being locked to a full kite build, that still does hurt him, which sucks. Because, you know, obviously that's just another factor that the team will have to work around, which is not very fun. Cannot lie.
Yeah. Okay, next we proceed on to Journalist, and I'm going to talk about this one temporarily because the next character is a character that Zeus will be interested in talking about, I'm sure. Oh, yeah. Anyway, Journalist. This is a classic example of a rescuer character with a high performance ceiling but a relatively low performance floor. Her peak tier pick rate is pretty high, honestly, at 3.3%, which is 6th place. Her win rate is 19.5% at 23rd place, and a draw rate of 28.8% at 31st place. Her ban rate is actually 2.4%, which is decently high. And her S1 knowledge points value is 25k 242 at 8th place, and she has an A 100 knowledge points value at 11k 253 at 10th place. Now this character, after like a series of like buffs and adjustments and optimizations since she has came out, has definitely been able to basically take the role of an interesting like an interesting position to fulfill an interesting role among all rescuer characters. Having a total of 4 cameras, which is like pretty one extra tool than, you know, regular 3 tool kiters or like rescuers, ensures that she has sufficient tools for flat ground speed boost, because you get a speed boost when you're running along with Orphe, and to use the Orphe for body blocking or pallet camping. Insta pallet drops with the Orphe gives her a good performance ceiling when kiting. Like, yeah, it prevents hunters from just straight up walking through a pallet and then gaining distance easily on her. She is also one of the best characters at ensuring a single rescue, because her rescue is pretty much like 2 people rescuing at once. Journalist herself, in most cases, cannot avoid getting hit in most cases, because the hunter, knowing that, you know, preventing the rescue will most likely not be likely, is most likely not going to happen, will opt to hit the journalist instead. But, you know, definitely very consistent at getting that one rescue. Compared to other rescuers, her only having a 10% decoding debuff is also on the lower end. In addition, Orphe can be timed with hunter skill releases and attacks to tank hits for teammates or body block. Definitely has a pretty good performance ceiling when supporting. If you successfully manage to use an Orphe to like block a hit for the teammate when your teammate is being chased by a hunter, the value that is gained from that is comparable to a Seer Owl, which makes her like a very good all-rounder rescuer that like definitely matches what the survivors need right now. They need a character who can like stand out and fulfill roles at any stage of the game, and Journalist is that character. However, overall, like, Orphe body block is still inconsistent, and you definitely need a lot of, like, precise timing and positioning, and, you know, special circumstances for you to carry out a successful body block for your teammate with Orphe. If you strive for the performance ceiling but the body block fails, Journalist herself becomes like pretty vulnerable. If you want to only ensure her performance floor, her kiting is still like reliant on pallet areas, and there are like a good number of hunters who do like AoE or stun that can counter Journalist's kiting.
Yeah. This one honestly is kind of I guess this is weird, because for me, I was one of the biggest journalist haters. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I think I was one of those like people with like journalists is just like buns, or like, you know, like there's no real use in journalists because of how easy it is to like gimmick her out of her abilities. Not exactly directly counter it, but it's just you can out gimmick her via, you know, things like hitbox manipulation, or just like, you know, like moving a certain direction to keep her away from her own Orpheus or something, like little things like that. But I can't. Again, I can't really find it in me to disagree because it's like they have the same reasons why I kind of like even now like on my own tier list I put journalist in A plus because I value the most consistent thing in her kit and that's being her ability to rescue. Because there is technically speaking no double downing Alice. There is no double downing her unless she is bad. Unless she herself is bad, there is no double downing her. But obviously you can out gimmick her maybe to get something cheeky out, which will then just hurt the entire team. And at that point it's like, all right, well, the reward is not outweighing the risk factor. Other than that, like I don't really disagree with this at all either. I don't have anything else to say. It's kind of like
a very consistent one-time rescuer. Kiting can be
Yeah.
exploitable, but potential performance ceiling is still very high.
Yeah. Like, look at Leon. Look at Leon, man. Like, Leon loves journalists. Leon makes journalists fucking work. Moving on, though, we have... Oh, yeah. Yeah, man. Archer. Infamous character on the channel. Infamous character on the channel. I'm sure we all know. We've heard me rant and rant and rant and rant about her. So before we get into it, let's just start off with her stats. So Archer had a peak tier pick rate of 1.7%, coming in at 29th, a win rate of 21.8, coming in at 4th, a draw rate of 28 flat, coming in at 38th, a ban rate of 1.4, coming in at 14th, and with her S1 capping out at 21k 468, coming in at 18th, and A100 coming in at 11k 319, coming in at 6th. So Archer, me personally, I've played Archer a lot. I have been second Archer on the server with almost 13,000 points, only getting beaten by the first Archer who was at 15k, and this was this past Koa season. So although I know my Archer is not the most proficient, and I'm not like the greatest Archer to ever exist in the fucking world, I'd like to think that I have enough knowledge and playtime on the character where I can say confidently I know her weaknesses and her strength inside and out. And again, even before reading this, I agree with the A- tier placement, TBH. Like, I know in my like previous tier list that I've been referencing, I put her like right around the bottom of A+ because it was just like obviously different meta and whatnot, or for how I was playing, but I feel like it's just, I mentioned it a lot. It is just a lot of like an NA diff. And NA like really struggles in terms of harassers, and that kind of gives them that extra quote unquote value despite their glaring weaknesses. And I think I also did have a little bit of bias because I got second for her and whatnot with like 13k points. But I agree with the A- placement already. She just has a number of weaknesses. Like, the items are great. She has a lot of items, but my god, Spirit of Bragi, one of the most annoying things to work around, the fucking slowdown, the limited range when it comes to harassing, the fact that the stun practically doesn't do anything, some level of inconsistency with crossbow in terms of when it comes out. Obviously, like, it's a prediction based ability, which is, you know, to each their own. I would prefer it reactionary because that's what it's intended to be, but, you know, again, each their own. Stun duration, it's just non-existent. Like, her actual harassment is just like in terms of balloon harassment is so like to me. Like, you can get it off, but getting it off doesn't actually do anything aside from just like farm the person on balloons practically.
Yeah, you have to shoot the core when the hunter is in the balloon animation, and the hunter, or like the balloon survivor, needs to be near an interaction point for the harassment to be like useful.
Exactly. And even then, even if you do shoot the hunter with the core, there's still the, what is it? It's like the 1.2 seconds that you have to be charging the keel bow before you actually are able to properly shoot the core for a stun off. And it's like, well, if the hunter knows that and they force me to shoot beforehand, and like, you know, they can just abuse the fact that they need to wait 1.2 seconds before I can actually shoot my arrow, you know? Because in 1.2 seconds, assuming the hunter has mischievous, that's a pickup right there. That's just pickup. And then if you shoot the core, well, it's just presence farm for the hunter, you know? But enough of me yapping, onto her strengths. So, for her strengths, they've listed, she has a high number of items and can control the hunter for a relatively long time throughout the entire match with good bow accuracy and proper usage, can actively seize the initiative. Yeah, I said that right, I'm not crazy. Initiative with enough finesse, she can stun the hunter with unreactable arrow shots. This is true because every now and again, when I actually lock in and me and y'all are 1v1ing, sometimes I'll hit him with like, I would like to say bullshit arrow shots. I'm not gonna lie, but like, I guess he just really could not react, even though I think he can because I don't view my archer as that good. But like, that's besides the point. And then laceration can put the hunters in dilemma. I honestly think that like, despite how much I meme it out about like laceration speed buildup, yes, her laceration is probably the better part of her kit in terms of the fact that it still at least does force the hunter to stand there for like a second or two, which by technicality is, you know, longer than the actual like stun duration itself, which is like kind of funny when you think about it in hindsight. And moving on to also hard harassment is low risk, high reward. Yeah, we talked about this. Balloon harassment leaves no end lag when it's in between the balloon animation. Laceration makes it more difficult for Hunter to chase Archer's teammates and can use crossbow to make up for regular arrow missers. Character strength has seen a rise after anti-harassment persona traits have been nerfed, and then regular decoding speed will mean that she's not a liability to the team. Yeah, I can agree with most of this. Yeah. Onto her weaknesses. Heartbeat range is too small. And then the heartbeat range gives her a notable movement speed. But you know, I was told that Spirit of Bragi doesn't matter. I remember I was vividly told that you know, Spirit of Bragi does not matter in any way, shape, or form. So this is kind of funny that you know, I'm now reading from, you know, the CN players that, you know, have over hundreds of stars and whatnot, and while I do have my disagreements with them on some placements, I kind of find it funny that, you know, I'm seeing that they're saying, oh no, Spirit of Bragi actually is a big hindrance. It is so that's just very funny, because I was told it doesn't. So yeah, small heartbeat range makes it hard for her to rotate, so that checks out. Spirit of Bragi makes it hard for her to keep at distance, especially on hyper mobility hunters. And then she cannot kite certain hunters with mechanics that counter her. Yep, because her item is limited at the end of the day, and certain hunters at full presence, they just tell her to go fuck herself. So
Yeah, and there are hunters that just fundamentally have kits that kill Archer, like Bloody Queen just destroys her. Dream Witch just by switching like on and off, the follower puts her in slowdown and just gets her.
Mm-hmm.
Like those things can really like screw her over. The Spirit of Bragi thing, like, but to some people, it's like, oh, why does heartbeat range matter? It's well, in a rank environment where the hunter's movements cannot be immediately communicated, especially in mid to late game, as is mentioned here in the document. A minus 30% heartbeat range can make you lose like invisibly a lot of distance. When you have heartbeat, the hunter is probably like 4 steps away from hitting you. So like obviously, as we all know, rotating is the most safe way to kite the majority of hunters, and Archer's debuff is fundamentally anti-rotation. So this really does matter. Spirit of Bragi does matter and is a serious limitation to her like viability.
Yep. But again, that was how you know, I was just told it doesn't matter though. But that's besides the point.
Mm.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of this. I honestly kind of wish they kind of went more in on her actual balloon harassment and the differences between it, because I do still think Archer has the safest harassment in terms of just buying time, because of, like they mentioned it earlier, it is low risk because she can be from afar, and obviously that's a pain in the ass to have to go back and forth between the harasser and the person who's downed. But her actual harassment in itself, it's borderline trash. It's like mid at best, but it's like it's borderline trash. Like just genuinely, it is borderline trash. I can't do anything.
Compared to like dedicated hard harassers like Ford, her stun duration doesn't create like a notable enough impact to turn the tide most of the time.
Yup, practically it.
Right. Next we have Pharaoh Lady. This character has also seen like a series of buffs since her release. I still remember, like previously, I believe it was before summer of last year. She was really one of the most trash decoders out there, and very importantly, she is countered by something called earphones, because you can hear her footsteps and the direction of where the footsteps are if you wear earphones. And in
I
higher
thought they
tier
took that
matches,
out.
yeah, what?
Yeah, they took that out. It's you can't hear
Yeah, they
anything
took
now.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
they took that out, which is
yeah,
why
yeah.
like she is as high as
Oh yeah, yeah.
here,
My fault,
middle of
man.
A minus. Overall, her stats are just a bit above average. There's nothing too low, nothing too high. Just decent, which
Hmm.
very much matches her placement on the tier list, in my opinion. Her peak tier pick rate is 2.3% at 18th place, win rate at 20.2%, 22nd place, draw rate at 29.6% at 18th place, ban rate at 0.2% at 22nd place. Her S1 knowledge points value is 20k 584 at 21st place, and a 100 knowledge points value at 10k 901 at 22nd place. Um, Now, she is like a character who is now able to carry out her decoding capabilities without being too much of a hindrance to the team. And the fact that she technically can activate in like invisibility cloak multiple times means that she is also anti-map pressure. It overall the invisibility gimmick makes her like one of the stronger kiters among decoders, and she is also a pretty good first kiter due to her ability to last pretty long, even at close quarters, especially when combined with the cane. Invisibility trigger frequency is pretty high, and only stops counting down when she is on the tear, which means that she most likely will have room for a rebound kite. And invisibility counters certain hunter abilities. Her decent decoding debuff becomes very powerful against certain math control hunters, and just touching a cipher like will give the cipher 10% decoding progress. Now, like her stealing cipher thing is no longer going to be like that detrimental to the cipher, which has the progress stolen. After her buff during last summer, you're no longer going to see situations where, for example, you're gonna steal the cipher progress from a cipher with a lot of progress into like a cipher with like medium progress. At most, you're gonna change. You're gonna turn, a cipher that has a lot of progress and a cipher that doesn't have much progress, which is the one you're working on, into a cipher with a good bit of progress and a cipher with a good bit of progress. So yeah. Now if properly used, the cipher stealing mechanic can like mess up the hunters' game cipher pressure plan sometimes. However, she still suffers from that silly rescuing debuff. Even after the reduced rescuing speed and the nerf to Berserker, her like 60% rescuing debuff still hurts her a lot. But thankfully, since she is a decoder, usually there isn't going to be, that many instances where she is like forced to rescue. Usually, the secondary rescuer or the containment character can go rescue. If you really want to like rescue her, you must be desperate. It's like it really sucks. The cane mine gaming still lacks a bit of consistency and can only like delay her from getting hit a little bit. Without the canes, just visibility it doesn't allow her to kite for too long at all. There are only two canes, and invisibility leaves like giant footprints. Without the canes, she easily dies.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of want her to be higher. I'm gonna be so real.
Mm.
I want her to be higher because I feel like one thing they kind of didn't address is her end game, and it's the fact that she is, by all intents and purposes, technically speaking, even without a cane, she's kind of unchaseable end game. She has a guaranteed 15 seconds of kiting during end game, and there's
Mm,
nothing, and there's
that's a pretty
nothing,
good point.
and there's nothing really that the hunter can do about it aside from just get lucky on a prediction on where the Pharaoh Lady is going, or like I guess like like hack the game and like like be able to hear her footsteps again. So like for me, like I put her in. I'm pretty sure for my own tier list. If I can just pull it up again, should probably just have it up on my own, like on my phone while I'm looking at it right now. Honestly, yeah, I put Pharaoh. I put Pharaoh like around A, if I'm not mistaken. I put Pharaoh like up in A. I can see A minus, but I would like middle of A minus is kind of crazy. Like I think at bare minimum like top of A minus. I'm not gonna lie, like top of A
Mm,
minus, top of A
mm.
minus to like mid A, like mid regular A, because it's just like that end game, man. Like that's just I feel like that's something that's just overlooked because like we talk about a lot of characters that are whiteboards, and it's like she's not one. Like when especially with these like end game wither based hunters that like have a million abilities, it's like she kites out damn near the entire gate guaranteed. Assuming the hunter
Yeah.
doesn't get lucky. So I feel like they could have put her higher, I'm not gonna lie. I think they are kind of like overlooking her end game just a tad bit.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's you know, also one of her strengths. You know, is like being able to last at close quarters
Mhm.
against most hunters.
Yeah,
And you know, fundamentally, she can't be a non-stick pan because you know, just decoding fast is already contributing to your team.
exactly. Or being able to quickly start a new cipher by fueling the new one, because it's not an actual direct drain.
Hmm.
Oh yeah. I would put her just a tad bit higher, me personally. But other than that,
Okay.
I'm all for the Fair Lady Glaze though, because I've been saying ever since her buff she has potential, and people act like Fair Lady's this trash character, and I'm like, no,
No,
she's
no, definitely nowhere near trash. The
like
stats show it as
no,
well.
exactly. My goat. On to the next, we have Postman. So, Postman up here with a peak tier pick rate of 3.18, being 8th highest peak tier pick rate, which is kind of crazy, not gonna lie. Peak tier win rate of 20.7, which is relatively high. A peak tier draw rate of 28.6, which is kind of like around the median, kind of. Yeah.
It's on the lower end.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
closer-ish to the lower end of it. And then we have a peak tier ban rate of just 0.1%, with the S1 capping out at 23k523 coming in at 9th, and then the A100 coming in at 11k298 coming in at 7th. So bro is holding 2 top 10 badge placements. It's kind of crazy, just shows his popularity. Overall, for my thoughts on Postman, I definitely think he's one of the more underrated survivors in the game. I see a lot of people put him in like B tier or hell even C tier, and I just that's just disingenuous to the character. So I hope my mic doesn't pick up like my chair like squeaking around and whatnot. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, I definitely think that like he's one of the more underrated characters in the game. I'm not gonna lie, because I've seen, like I just said, people put him in like B tier or some shit, or like C tier. I think this tier honestly is right where he belongs though, because he's a perfect like filler character that can do enough of something but not excel in anything. But it's
Mm.
just the duration. But onto his strengths. So obviously we all know Postman is known for his supporting effects for kiting, rescuing, decoding, hell, gate opening, or dungeon kiting. It's very good. His letters have a lot of versatility and utility, especially when it comes to like tight, and when you're in a tight position to some
Mm.
degree. Oh, being able to open the gate faster, being able to see dungeon from halfway across the map, being able to decode 10% faster, getting a nice broken windows speed boost randomly while you're kiting, like those are pretty nice. Obviously, as well, he has infinite items, which means wither playstyle doesn't exactly work on him because of the fact that his item is infinite. Not to mention, the wick cooldown is not as long in comparison to other cooldowns, whether you hit or miss. And then, of course, the stunning and the slowdown from Wick actually is able to give Postman some level of distance gaining and also support, and pretty solid support, to be honest. Like being able to stun the hunter and slow down their movement speed, like that's nothing to laugh at. That's pretty good. That's a good base kit. However, his weaknesses, and some of them could be glaring. Kiting buffs from letters and Wick's slow debuffs on the hunters is underwhelming against hunters that move fast. So hunters like Nightwatch, for example, as funny as that is, I know how much Nightwatch gets memed, but yeah. Hunters like Nightwatch, hunters like Opera, any hunter that just can move extremely fucking fast or cut a lot of distance relatively quickly. The slowdown, it's not that, massive to the point where like it stops them in their tracks. It's kind of irrelevant, to be honest. It's like a hindrance at best. It's like, like you ever been playing with like your little siblings before and they like hit you as hard as they can and they think they're like really hurting you, but you're just kind of looking at them like, what are you doing? That's kind of like how, an opera singer would see a postman wick, like a wick slowing them down. And then obviously the letters requires time, and the effects are not immediate, aka like even though I send a letter, there's still like a 10 to 15-second period before the letter actually reaches you. And then he can't deal with emergency situations when Wick is on cooldown. So if he gets caught while he's on all cooldowns, he's just caught. He's a sitting duck. He just gets completely shitted on. And then the most obvious one, obviously, Wix can lead the Hunter's attack recovery being canceled, because this is more so a weakness because of Wix pathing, because he always tracks the Postman himself, but the AI follows the logic of like a Hellember flame, where if you vault a window, it will either it'll either vault the window or go around the object. I don't know exactly how the AI works, but it like works somewhat like the Hellember Flame AI. It's like really weird. So it can lead to like unknowing situations. Kind of crazy.
Yeah. I also agree that this is a character that's despite those weaknesses, is an overall underrated character. This character can indeed do a bit of everything. The letters are very comprehensive in terms of functionality. And especially the gate opening buff. Wow, that can really save your life sometimes, especially if hunters win claustrophobia. It can be life or death.
Yeah.
It's not something to laugh at. And the overall his kiting can really only bully hunters that walk on barefoot, but it's not terrible for a support character, considering how like comprehensive his ways of carrying out support is. As Zeus said earlier, giving like a 10% speed boost for a few seconds, or like vaulting window speed boost. Those things can be pretty nice.
It can be. There can be like they're just like, oh yeah, I have that now. Especially on like characters who would, if you're running flywheel on them for whatever reason, and then after that you get a broken windows, but it's like, oh cool, I have a one-time broken windows plus my flywheel now. So it's like you're on a soft Sui kite, which can really throw the hunter's game off, because it can allow you to preserve your items when you otherwise couldn't, which is something that I think should be valued in the character.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why this character isn't rated highly, aside from obvious stuff like quick potentially canceling attack recovery, is that none of his effects seem like too obvious. But considering how he has infinite items, those like supposedly minor benefits really do stack up. So, like, you should, if there's a Postman in your team and you do manage to win the game, Postman has definitely contributed.
Yeah, Postman definitely contributed to that, whether it was giving someone a nice little broken windows, a movement speed letter, a gate opening speed letter, a faster decoding letter, like that 10%, man. A 10% letter for what, 30 seconds? That's pretty fucking huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we have Weeping Clown. I remember when this character was buffed. Was it like 2 years ago in summer?
Yeah.
When this character suddenly became super overpowered. But now he's still not bad, but there are definitely like a good bit of limitations to point out. He's a relatively unpopular character in CN, with a pick rate of only 1.2%, which is 42nd place. But his win rate is pretty high though, which is 21.1% at 10th place. His draw rate is 28.1% on the lower end, 36th place, with a ban rate of only 0.1% as well, which is 36th place. His S1 knowledge points value is pretty high at 24k, 134, which is 11th place, and a 100 knowledge points value at 10k, 310, which comes at 35th place. This character's largest issue, as perhaps you'll understand later, is a lack of clear role, because the document labels him as a rescuer and a containment character and a support character, but when it comes to each of these roles, there always seem to be better options. So he just ends up being that kind of like a jack of all trades character. But the rockets though, like having 3 rockets, each rocket allows for like a very easy distance gaining. Like if the hunter decides to chase the Weeping Clown first, he can easily kite for 80-90 seconds, no problem. The rockets are just that strong and that brain dead. The rocket CD is short enough so that like when paired with the ending speed boost from the previous rocket, and also like ending the rocket speed boost in like proper kiting areas, you can definitely use the next rocket in time without getting hit. He can deal with like a good bit of like distance gaining hunter skills on top of hard countering hunters that walk on barefoot. It's gonna be a real struggle for hunters to follow Weeping Clown in those situations. He also has the option to stun hunters if the hunter does move very fast. A rocket can interrupt like a key hunter skill. He, of course, also has supporting capabilities. If you use the rocket to protect someone who is alive, the effects can be pretty obvious because you can simultaneously stun the hunter and give your teammates a speed boost. Um, balloon harassment has more limitations. It's not as flexible, and the rocket can only dash in a straight line, but it exists. Of course, he can bring teammates along on rockets, which can further counter hunters that walk on barefoot. However, him having a minus 15 decoding debuff is not something that can be ignored. Um, Even though his kiting is indeed very strong, hunters most likely will not chase him. Um, so when supporting, his performance ceiling is like pretty difficult to achieve. The stun time is just like 2.5 seconds. It's like barely long enough to create a meaningful impact. Usually, um, if you like are committed to balloon harassing, you're better off trying to protect someone who is alive. But protecting someone who's alive in regular rank matches without proper communication can also be difficult. Um, Another thing is that Weeping Clown cannot turn his camera when he is on the rocket, which makes him vulnerable to certain hunter skills that fly a long distance, and can like basically drag him off the rocket. Rockets also get easily consumed when he tries to protect survivors that are being ballooned, as I said previously. Um, and if you want to use him as a rescuer, and you use your rocket to avoid being intercepted and dash straight to the chair, Rivers can easily dodge the rocket, and Weeping Clown, in the majority of circumstances, cannot avoid getting hit.
Yeah. I can't really think. I'm pretty sure where did I put my boy little Weepy, just for reference. I put him in just slap dab A, which yeah, I think is, I guess, in terms of this tier list, which would just be like middle to middle A minus. Yeah. I can't really disagree, because it's just like, for what he's supposed to be, which is support and rescue, he's really limited in that. Like, when you execute it properly, it's rewarding. But it's like you have to fulfill A, B, C, and D in order to actually get that reward from the Weeping Clown support. And it just can be a burden more often than not on the team. Especially since he already decodes slow at that. It's just something that really does end up hurting him in the long run, which does suck. But I can't. Again, yeah, man, I can't say I disagree. It just sucks, I remember when Weepy was like that guy. Now he's kind of just like looking in the mirror. He's like, who am I? Where's I?
Yeah.
What did I used to
But
be?
back when he only had 10% decoding debuff, he was one of the most hated spammers in CN for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, what he was back then to most CN hunters is my attitude towards novelists right now. Oh my God, Rocket's gaining distance, so skillful.
And you decode somewhat fast too. Oh yeah, man. On to the next character, Knight. So Knight is a character that I have also historically had beef with, because even on release, people glazed Knight to no end, and I was obviously one of his hardest criticizers with every single thing in his kit. So of course I had to play the Knight, and I had to play the character intensively, so I can obviously bitch and moan about everything about him more accurately, right? Because that's just the kind of person I am. Onto his stats, he had a peak tier pick rate of 2.2%, coming in at 21st, a win rate of 19% flat, coming in at 28th, a draw rate of 28.9% at 22nd, but a ban rate of 3.9 coming in at 8th. That is more than likely due because of his rescue ability, because even on release when he came out, his rescue ability is single-handedly, I'm pretty sure you could argue it as the best rescue ability in the game, because the ability to be at the chair to stall time, stop the hunter from moving or like doing whatever they're doing, and then give someone a mini tide turner for 8 seconds, like that's just not comparable with any other ability to rescue in the game. in my personal opinion. So they've people banning him for his rescuing capability because it's like he doesn't even necessarily need to run Tide, technically speaking. Yeah, I get why they're banning him that fucking much. Onto his knowledge points, S1 capping out at 15k 993, coming in at 35th, which is really low actually. That actually surprises me. Those are like, that's damn near NAAU numbers actually. And then A100 capping it out at 10k 814, with placing at 25th. So, Knight, we all know Knight's strengths. Obviously, his greatest strength, like I stated earlier, is his rescuer. But the other thing that they mention in here is actually his buff. Now, remember, for the little history lesson, when Knight first came out, Knight's chivalrous sympathy, aka his little, what I called his suicide rescue. I don't know why I even call it that, but I've just been calling it that ever since it's been a thing on release. It got buffed. It was first at like what, it had like a 0.7 second animation time, and then it got nerfed to like having like a 0.8 or higher animation time, and then recently it got buffed again back to 0.7. So it's like, he never got nerfed, which makes it damn near impossible to get rescued. Like, genuinely, it just makes it damn near impossible to get TS while rescuing when you're doing specifically that. And obviously, if you do get that off, the mini tide turner that's built into it damn near prevents double downs. It's very hard to get double down with the character, even if he gets hit when he is rescuing. Not to mention, onto his kiting, helmet obviously does hard counter some hunters. Think things like Wu Chang, think things like Naiad when they don't have presence. If Naiad's in migration, what do? You just skill predict her, so that way then afterwards she can't pull back and she's stuck in migration and she can't do anything. Or Wu Chang, he throws out Nirvana, skill predict, he can't do anything. It's a black form Wu Chang with no presence chasing you, double attack predict, can't do anything. Stuff like that. There are just hunters that he just fundamentally hard counters like that with the helmet.
And also a certain character who only has an attack button.
Yeah. Obviously though, it also does require some mind games, but you guessing correctly, obviously it does give you value because you still get a speed boost if you predict attack correctly on a hunter with attack. It does obviously prevent you. It obviously stops the hunter. It stuns them for like a little portion of time, and then if you correct the ability correctly, it silences the hunter's abilities, and obviously still also gives you a speed boost to give you just that little amp of distance, which is good. However, his biggest weakness, which is the thing that I was saying for the longest time, even when he first came out, when everyone was peak glazing him, his helmet is inconsistent. When the hunter can freely release skills, aka it's purely luck based. Something that I preached that I was told is a non-issue yet again. So just gonna toot my own horn about that. But yeah. Helmet is inconsistent. It's a 50-50 every time. It doesn't matter what you do, damn near. Unless it's those specific matchups that I mentioned earlier, something like a Naiad with no presence and migration, or a Wu Chang or a black form Wu Chang with no presence chasing you on barefoot. Everything else, flip a coin. Go to the deli, buy yourself a lottery ticket, and take a chance on becoming a billionaire. That's practically what Knight is. At that, also, as good as the rescuing is for Chivalrous Sympathy being the mini tide turner, it doesn't allow survivors enough time to die away from certain positions. Unfortunately, 8 seconds is less than 20 seconds, so obviously the hunter does have the option and the ability to just simply stall it out and can just either body the survivor in to prevent movement or just simply follow the survivor normally and then hit right after. Because typically if a survivor has already been put on chair, they either have very low items or no items if their item has a certain limit to it. And then of course he decodes at -20, which is not really worth it considering that his entire kiting ability is a 50-50. Having a -20 decoding debuff while your kiting ability is practically a coin flip doesn't exactly suit the greatest for a team composition, as beneficial quote unquote as the kiting ability can be.
Yeah, I played Knight a good bit at the start of the season, and I can say that this character is honestly like in a pretty awkward situation right now. This is a character that I feel like is one of those characters that is complained about by Hunter players a lot, but in reality simply just is not that strong to a greater degree than Seer. And similar to Seer, actually, this character's only like notable stat is his high ban rate. Nothing else stands out. Like for this character, it's hard to say whether you should run flywheel or tide turner. If you run tide turner, then A, your kiting becomes an issue. Don't you dare tell me that, oh, if I get all my guesses with the helmet correctly, I can kite for a long time. If you don't guess correctly once, you explode.
Hmm.
And also with tide turner, in order for your tide turner not to stack with chivalrous sympathy, you kind of have to rescue with your bare hands during first rescue, in which case, like, you will get injured afterwards, and it is unlikely that you will be able to rescue a second time and activate civil sympathy anyway. If you bring flywheel, your kiting might be a bit better, but like just relying on that your 8 seconds of mini shield with chivalrous sympathy, it doesn't nearly compare with the effect of Tide Turner. Nowhere near as good. It cannot replace Tide Turner. And honestly, just 20% decoding debuff is way too high for how inconsistent his kiting is. Overall, from what he previously was, by previously I mean when he was first released onto the regular server, as a very versatile and strong rescuing option, he has now become more of a like counterpick character, I would say.
Yeah. I think I think my only thing is obviously like as good as it is. I feel like maybe I'm just I guess maybe this might be my still own personal bias from playing him. I would put him in just like in A tier. I think in my own tier list I put him in A plus tier because again, just like peak Koa season, so it's just like everyone is running meta and Knight does something against like he does really well all things considered into like Goatman. This was obviously not really any QS things involved and whatnot. So I think maybe I would still rate Knight a little higher, as harsh as I am on him, but he's just not where he was beforehand, unfortunately speaking. And obviously, as I'm playing through this, I'm gonna make a tier list at the end of the season because I'm pretty sure this tier list was right at the end of Koa season, the last one that I made. So
Yes,
obviously,
but
yeah,
also like it includes the adjustments at the end of the previous season. It doesn't completely well the stats are based off
yeah.
the end of the previous season, but it's also based on observations of like current 100 plus star like
Hmm.
matches.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. So it's like at the end of this season, like around the end of this season, I'll make another tier list, and then we're gonna see like how different it really is compared to like Koa season, like compared to
Yeah.
how it was. Because oh boy, do I have a lot more things, a lot more, I guess, hot takes, I
Yeah.
guess.
Right. Next up, we have Meteorologist. I
Oh,
suppose people will be surprised by this placement, but allow me to explain.
me.
Oh, well, okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see about that. Um, all of her like stats appear are literally all within the 20th place to 22 place like range. So her P tier pick rate is 2.2% at 21st place, win rate at 20.2% at 22nd place, draw rate at 29% flat, which is 20th place, ban rate of 0.3% at 21st place, an S1 knowledge points value at 20k 575 at 20th place, and an A 100 knowledge points value at 10k 960, which is 20th place. Um, this character has evolved after, or should I say, evolved after her multiple nerfs since her release into like the biggest, fattest non-stick pan character out there. Um, her kiting options, as a proper non-stick pan, are comprehensive enough. It's like strong enough. It doesn't get hard hammered by any hunter. Either it's with clouds or wind blast. You can pretty much kite every hunter for a good bit. Small wind blast has little force swing. Large wind blast is almost guaranteed to hit and very difficult for hunters to dodge. Three small wind blasts and one large wind maximizes kiting potential. Or if you want to mix in like with the cloud stack in there, that also works. Um, Also, hunters who are focused on dodging the wind blasts, they lose distance from cloud stacks. So you can just really choose between which one you want to use, and cloud stacks can really give you a lot of benefits, especially in two-story areas or complex terrain. Using Wind Blast to push the hunter away or pressing the hunter against walls has decent value. It buys a good bit of time. Also, the skills are like on-click release. It ensures her own safety. It has little backswing, so she can move very quickly after releasing the wind. Rain healing can be life-saving in certain situations, in like back and forth map pressure situations when you desperately need to heal someone. Perhaps rain healing is the option to go with. And also she has like two passive contour revealing abilities. One which I believe reveals like the location of nearby like injured survivors. The other one that reveals the dungeon location, which benefits solo ranking. Sure. In terms of weaknesses, now her bottle durability is just seriously not enough. It runs out way too fast. Previously, you can still like manipulate a bit with, like a semi-high cloud. Perhaps you can like sneak in two extra large wood blasts in there. Now clouds like guarantee at least 50% durability, and rain is also 50% durability. Just her tools just get consumed way too fast and makes her particularly vulnerable in back and forth map pressure situations. Small Wind, while just fast to release and has a little backswing, is pretty easy for hunters to dodge. Large Wind is obviously more consistent, but after like a adjustment from a previous year where they made it so that the time when hunters get pressed by winds onto walls is going to be like affected
Prompted by addiction.
by
Yeah.
addiction, desperate fight, rage, etc. It also reduces the effectiveness of large wind blast. Um, the non-stick pan phenomenon is like pretty serious. With Tide Turner, she herself can't kite for too long, and with Tide Turner, like just it like Tide Turner doesn't really synergize with her too well. Because if you want to avoid getting intercepted with clouds, you're still gonna get hit in front of the chair, and you might get double. If you want to, like sneak to the chair and use Wind Blast, the Wind Blast doesn't, the effectiveness of Wind Blast is significantly reduced near the chair. So the previous advantage of being able to rescue with Wind Blast now no longer exists either. So you only see Meteorologist demonstrate the advantage that she has when the survivors are in an advantage and the bottle durability can be properly applied to maximize their benefits. In other cases, when she's being withered, bottle durability simply is not enough.
Oh, oh my god. This one hurts me because, listen, it's kind of funny because, obviously, I'm sure we all know historically when Wendy first came out, I was the very first person to say that she's not S tier after everyone was glazing her. What is it like last? It's been now a year exactly, actually, that damn near since she came out, right? Yeah, it's been around like roughly around there.
About a year. Yeah.
So until obviously, and now obviously, like in my last, like I think like the last two tier lists that I've done, I put her in S tier, and I don't know, man. Like I'd be like, I understand obviously that her win, like her bottle consumption is bad, but it's like, man, it's just the sustainability and the consistency she has, man. Like it's like being able to force the hunter to have to do something about your ability in terms of bringing a trait like warp, for instance, in order to actually handle it, like because obviously rain reveals position and whatnot when they're healing, but it's like even like the hunter having to bring warp, that's just like, or some kind of trait to deal with it, like that's value, man. Like at least to me, like that is just value that like I feel like you gotta respect. Now on top of the fact that obviously chopping two, hitting two birds with one stone, you heal both the person who's actually receiving the effects of the rain cloud and the other person who's potentially injured. I will agree with the Tide Turner portion because with Tide Turner, it's like, it's really like kind of mid on her, like they said. Because obviously, like if you're running Tide on her, that means you don't have a real ability to actually get into the chair that is in your bottle, and using your bottle kind of, diminishes your sustain. So she does have that kind of level of anti-synergy with Tide, which I do agree, but it's like, I feel like for that case, like just never run her on Tide. If you only run her as like just a kiter with sustainability and able to like keep the team alive, like I feel like that's value that they're just like overlooking to some degree. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, for rain healing, their argument against this, which I know isn't specifically mentioned here, but was discussed by the person who made the video corresponding to this tier list,
Mhm.
is that currently in the healing meta, the like actual additional value that you can gain with rain is reduced. And rain itself has multiple limitations. Just like revealing the location on the map itself is already a hindrance.
Mhm.
From the very beginning, rain was never the reason why Meteorologist was powerful. And using rain, of course, already consumes a lot of bottle durability.
Yeah, I see. So what was the in their eyes, what was the reason why she was so powerful from when she came out? if you remember.
It was like being able to, you know, technically cheat a bit with your ability with regards to, you know, clouds and wind blast. You can technically
Mhm.
use above 100% because even with a tiny bit of bottle remaining, you can still draw like a full cloud, and
Oh
you can
yeah.
manipulate a bit with, you know, as I said previously, you can squeeze out like a high clouds and then two big wind blasts or something like
Mhm.
that. But
Yeah.
now, after the values are more fixed, that no longer exists either. And along with multiple other things that I mentioned previously, including the reduced effectiveness of wind blast near the chair, and reduced effectiveness of wind blast when pressing the hunter on the wall if the hunter brings addiction, other anti-harassment abilities. Um,
Mm.
Overall, it just makes her like kiting not being able to like last particularly for a long time. I guess first kite is still decent if like, you know, she brings flywheel and stuff,
Mhm.
but you know, like it she doesn't have that much room for rebound kite if you insist on using all of the bottles for an effective first kite. And after that, that she has no, you know, becomes a whiteboard.
Yeah, she has no items, no abilities. Oh, when you see your goat get cooked and they're low key right. Oh man, little Wendy. Guys, I think in the next tier list she's not gonna be an S tier. In the next tier list, she's not gonna be up there, guys.
Yeah. Uh,
Unfortunately.
the thing about a character like her is that while she can indeed like deal with most hunters, no hunter is particularly troubled by her. No hunter at the in the current meta sees her and goes like, "Oh my god, gotta deal with her." It's like, okay, yeah, she's something to take note of, but she won't absolutely make me want to crash my head against the wall, you know?
Like Doctor.
Yeah, precisely.
Well,
Okay, final character in A minus tier.
we have Priestess. This one is also gonna ruffle some feathers because this, I'm not gonna lie, this is an agenda that I've also been pushing along with Anti and Seer for quite a while. With the, you know, Antiquarian and Seer are not S tier agenda. You know, I've been, so this is another one. So we have Priestess as our final character in the A minus tier, coming in with a peak tier pick rate of 1.7%, coming in at 29th, a win rate of 19.8%, coming in at 25th, a draw rate of 27.9, coming in at 42nd. Oh my low. And then a ban rate of 9.8, coming in at 5th, which is obviously a very big spike. Her S1 caps off at 22k and 46, with coming in at 15th, and her A100 only at 9.7k. Wow, that's really low, coming in at 41st. And they're saying that she could arguably be B tier. Yo, damn, if you told me years ago that Priestess would arguably be in B tier, I'd look at you like you were crazy. Like, genuinely. I would look at you like you're absolutely insane, dude.
I mean, but they got a fair point. Like this character is a bit like Knight, where the only notable stat is her ban rate. Everything else looks pretty bad, honestly.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I have to agree. It's just like, unfortunately, guys, I don't make the rules. I don't make the rules, guys. I don't make the rules, man. I don't make the rules, guys. I'm sorry. I don't make them. I can't, like, I've already been personally pushing this agenda for God knows how long. So this is nothing new to me specifically. But enough of me yap-a-lapping and, you know, like, pointlessly speaking. Let's get on with the strengths. So obviously we all know Priestess has amazing strengths, being her support capabilities and her kiting on certain maps, i.e. Eversleeping, i.e. Chinatown, two of the most notorious Priestess maps in this entire game. I'm sure if you hit peak tier before, you've heard a hunter mutter the words or survivor mutter the words / sentence, Priestess broke on Chinatown, Priestess broke on Eversleeping, you know? I'm sure we've all heard it, we've all said it at some point. She can fundamentally break the game's kiting routes in terms of giving survivors ability to transition to areas they normally would not be able to transition to, point blank period, because portals are just that great of a support tool. Not to mention, she can, technically speaking, run Tide Turner as long as you give her like a good, you know, area to like spawn in, but she also just has really great synergy with Tide Turner in general because of the long passage, aka, you know, the ultra long portal. Survivor gets rescued with Tide Turner. They take the Tide Turner. They go to global. Now they're halfway across the map, and the hunter has to switch to TP/warp if they haven't brought it already. And being able to force the hunter into a trait that they don't want to use very early on is obviously just a very strong thing to do. Like that is something that just cannot be overlooked. Twins, as much as we want to, it cannot be. Moving on, it just obviously she has a very high heal as well. You know, her healing buff, the Omni healing buff that she gives to, I'm pretty sure, right? It's to everyone on the team, right?
Everyone to everyone on the team, it's 10%. To herself, it's 30%.
God damn, Jesus fuck, 30? Oh my god, even I didn't remember that. God damn, 30% healing, holy shit. But yeah, so as we can see, very fast healing, very fast healing, which obviously allows you to give, you know, easier time when it comes to resetting. And then again, like all the other characters, like, well, not all the other characters literally, but all the other, you know, infinite item characters out there, infinite item, which means Wither doesn't really work on her because she will always eventually have an item. Wow, these are all great. She has very glaring weaknesses in this meta. Regular portals have a very low stun time, which means that even if you make your portal, you don't really get that much distance out of it to actually transition to somewhere meaningful that would allow you to loop more strongly or kite strongly in general, especially on maps, funny enough, like Eversleeping or Chinatown, to some degree, where you kind of need to transition a very long amount of distance. You just do. That is just the reality. Her slow vaulting speed makes her very vulnerable in maps where she can't perform well, and then obviously she is also extremely reliant on team cooperation and proper game sense by both the Priestess player and her teammates, and she cannot afford to support and purely kite due to her 10% decoding debuff. She can't just, you know, like, her support isn't that valuable to the point where she can be something like a batter or a forward where she can just say, fuck my decoding, I'm gonna go just carry the game. Like, no, her support isn't that meaningful. Unfortunately, it's not that powerful, you know. It's good, but it's not that powerful, and she has to respect that. And sometimes she just has to sit in the back seat and do nothing, which honestly, in my opinion, kind of like low-key would quote unquote make her a non-stick pan for me personally. If she is really just like, she kind of just does have to sit there and take the back seat and do nothing because she literally can't do anything otherwise.
Yeah, due to her decoding debuff, she can't afford not to do anything. The thing about, like, Priestess that's often mentioned in the CN server is that he is the only character that simultaneously has a decoding debuff and a vaulting debuff. Like, how powerful does your handheld item have to be to warrant those two debuffs existing at the same time?
Yeah.
The answer is, like, the portal themselves do not qualify as a strong kiting tool because, like, one thing that's often misunderstood about portals is that they're not there to stun the hunter and allow you to purely gain distance. They exist to allow you to transition to safer kiting areas. That's the point of portals. And in the current meta, it's just like you use two portals that you get at the start of the game, and then the hunter recovers really fast.
And now you have nothing.
Of desperate fight or rage or like addiction or whatever, and then you get hit. You kind of have to support. The very strong long portal can get the effectiveness can be reduced somewhat by just, you know, the hunters bringing warp at the start. Warp definitely qualifies as, you know, a regular chasing tool that hunters can just regularly bring and doesn't have to swap to. So yeah, this is a character that really relies on both the Priestess player and the Priestess's teammates knowing what they're doing. You should really, for those who are watching this video, dig up the stats for Priestess before she was buffed. The buff where, you know, her portal making force swing is reduced, and also that nearby teammates can see the portals that she has created. Before that, her stats were even worse than what you see here. Again, the only notable thing on her is her ban rates, and that's because of her strength in just specialized maps. In maps where she does not perform well, letting out Priestess really is unlikely to create that much of an impact to, you know, the hunter's experience. You can just, you know, deal with the portals regularly. It's not that big of a deal.
You can just cope with it and be like, all right, man, I got it. Like, it's one of these things. It's like where I say, it's what I was talking about earlier when it came for like Seer or whatnot. or like when I say on stream stuff like Archer, it's genuinely, it's placebo, man. It's mass placebo. It's just the thing of like, it has been the norm for so long, our minds can literally not comprehend the fact that it has deviated from the norm. Like, every time, like, someone's banning Priestess or something, or, like, Seer or something, it's like, even though, like, you know, Priestess obviously does have her utility on some maps, majority of the time, it's just because, oh, everyone else has said to ban it, so I'm banning it. That's
Yeah,
that's
like honestly, on like maybe 3 maps on the game, it's valid to ban her. On other maps, just let her out, man. It's not.
it won't kill you. It really won't kill you.
Yeah, even if you are like still insistent on banning Priestess, at least perhaps try playing Priestess as a survivor. Like you'll understand how difficult it is to truly carry out her performance stealing, with proper coordination with teammates, which is pretty difficult in rank without proper communication.
Yup, especially when you don't have that thing called comms that you need, man. Oh boy. Oh, let me tell you, that's why I'm like, I see like a lot from this tier list. Obviously, these players, they're really high on like harassing and whatnot, and I'm just like, yeah, no, not for me. I'm sorry, not for me. I just like, I genuinely hate harassing in this game more than ever, and I've been harasser main for like 4 years, 3-4 years, and I hate it more than ever because it's just a communication thing. I have to always be able to communicate, and unfortunately speaking, in a rank setting, you just don't have that, and that is something that you just need to cope with. And I hate having to cope with that, me personally.
Okay, so next we proceed on to the B+ tier. If the characters in A- tier have strengths that mostly cover up for their weaknesses, then for characters that are in B+ tier and downwards, their shortcomings can no longer be ignored. They have pretty obvious exploitable weaknesses, or their strengths are just not apparent enough. They're not the characters in this tier are not like that weak by any means, but they're definitely always better options. First of all, we have Painter. This character, in terms of stats, are mostly around like the average level, except for the ban rate, which is literally 0% at 36th place. His pick rate is 1.8% at 28th place. Win rate of 20.6%, which is 16th place. A draw rate of 29.1%, which comes up at 21st place. His S1 knowledge points value is 20k234, which is 23rd place. And his A100 knowledge points value is 10k852, coming in at number 24th place. This character's strengths are often discussed. The classic being able to sit the entirety of the chair time. You bring 3 stacks of max snooze on him. The actual effect of his chairing gimmick is far stronger than any other like mechanic that increases the chair time. Like definitely stronger than First Officer in that regard. Outside of that, he has excellent kiting capabilities. In my opinion, he's one of the most difficult characters to chase. If you don't bring a certain supporting trait, but his painting is a kiting tool that belongs to the hard stalling category. Like it forcibly controls the hunter, which is high versatility. Technically, he has no items at the start, but the condition of like observing the hunter's face is very easy to meet, and he has the option to always place down a painting before fully recording the hunter's face or completing the whole painting. Still stuns the hunter in place for a good while. He gains a permanent speed boost after placing down each painting. It's not much. It's 2% for each painting, at most 4%, but it definitely like increases his kiting experience by a lot. Yeah, from what I've hinted previously, if you do bring excitement and warp and then you decide to chase Painter, Painter's going to die pretty easily. Excitement is the single thing that kills Painter. It's not even like Coordinator, where Coordinator can just choose not to use the flare gun at all, or to just use it before the blink cooldown is ready if she gets chased first. By the time the painter finishes a painting, the excitement cooldown will be ready, one way or the other. Alternatively, the hunter can bring warp, because after placing down a painting and then the hunter looks at the painting, the painter's location is revealed for a while, so the hunter can just warp onto their face. Also, he can't paint while Tide Turner is active, which means that his ability to rebound kite is relatively limited. Yeah, so those are his weaknesses. Um, in most cases, like this character is supposedly labeled as a supporter, but it's not even something like novelist where you already have a book at the start. In order to support, you still have to go to the hunter, look at the hunter, and then paint. So yeah.
Um, damn, I'm not gonna lie. Kind of disappointing in terms of the painter rating. I'm not gonna lie because I think I'm pretty sure if I remember off the top of my head, you know, I put painter in A minus tier, and I know people watching this video are gonna be like, Zeus, why do you gotta keep remembering? I'm like, look at the dates, guys. Um, but yeah, I did put him on A minus. I barely put him at the top of A minus though, so I can understand why he's down there. I think it's just I value, I guess, that chair thing, that his little chair gimmick too much. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I just like if I'm picking a painter like for a team comp, I'm building a team. I'm picking painter because of that chair stalling gimmick, because of the fact that it's just so absurdly broken. You know?
Yeah, this is this gimmick is definitely something that you can plan around when it comes to like comp, like putting a painter in an area that is right on the hunter's face and forcing the hunter to chase painter first. But in rank, those instances
Because
are
they're
more rare.
uncontrolled.
And if the hunter doesn't chase the painter, like the painter without going to actively support is just going to become a non-stick ban.
Yeah. No, I get it. Like, I can understand why they put him on B. I'm just like, for me personally, I just value that chair gimmick a little too much.
Yeah,
Maybe,
that's fair.
yeah,
Yeah.
just more than others probably. I value that chair gimmick more, and that's perfectly okay. That's
Mhm.
nothing too crazy, guys. Nothing too crazy.
Mhm.
Um. But aside from that, there's no other real, I guess, things I'm confused on. Like the fact that he can't paint on Tide obviously is probably like his biggest hindrance in his kit, in my opinion. It's kind of like the same thing that was happening with Puppeteer before Puppeteer got his buff, where he could actually use his own puppet under Tide. It's just like it just makes rebound kiting, like they said, damn near non-existent. Like it's like he has to live for 20 seconds through Tide while the hunter already has presence, but he has literally no ability to actually defend himself whatsoever. So it's like, what does he even do? Like, genuinely, like, what does bro even do for real?
Yeah, and you better hope that you start painting before you get hit. Otherwise, your room for error becomes much smaller
Yup.
in
Like,
first
you have to
chase.
play damn near perfectly, and
Yeah.
even if you do, by the time the painting is even up, the hunter already has trait built in. Because don't forget, before you even start painting, you have to look at the hunter for what it's like 10 seconds, not 10 seconds literally, but like for a shorter painting, because I know they did adjust that with him, which I guess is something that I feel that they also didn't address, the fact that like his painting, you don't need to fully commit to the
Oh
painting
yeah,
to
it,
get
it
it.
was it was addressed in the document. I specifically
Oh,
talked about. You don't
oh,
have to
okay,
look
my
at
fault. Yeah,
the
yeah,
entire. You can move on to the next character.
but
Yeah.
then yeah, so then yeah, I don't, if that's the case, then yeah, I just really don't. I can understand why he's in B. Unfortunate, because again, I value his chair gimmick, but I can understand why he's in B and not at like at highest A minus. Moving on to the next character, though, we have Prisoner. This one is kind of a hot take, to at least for NAEU standards, because for NAU, I know that NAU, we kind of value Prisoner a lot as of recent, especially during like, what was it? It was like this upcoming, like, for IVT and whatnot. There was just a lot, like, it was just Prisoner Cypher Rush spam, damn near. And even him, Prisoner, being picked somewhat frequently in comp for quite a time over the course of like the last like year, 2 years. But with his stats, we have sorry. With his stats, we have a peak tier pick rate of 2.9% coming in at 10th, a win rate of 19.9% coming in at 24th, a draw rate of 29% flat coming in at 23rd, a ban rate of just 0.2% coming in at 22nd, and then his S1 knowledge point value caps out at 18k478 coming in at 29th, and the A100 capping out at 11k53 coming in at 18th. So Prisoner, obviously, I think this is gonna this is like a real big shock for me, because I know for Prisoner, I'm pretty sure I put him in A plus. I'm pretty sure I put him somewhere around there in terms of like his Cypher Rush. Did I? Let me just reference. Oh nope, I was mistaking that I was mistaking that for another character. Oopsie. I put Prisoner down in A-. I put Prisoner down in A-. I was thinking of another character, not Prisoner itself. Sorry, guys. I'm a little crazy. But besides from that, I think his strengths are still good. I think B might be a little harsh, but it does say, bottom of A-, the top of, B+. So, there's still some leeway there. But moreover to his strengths, some of them being that he can actively decode leftover ciphers in solo ranking, saving plenty of time it would take to otherwise run around the map and give extra merit in the ranked match. So, obviously being able to decode another cipher from halfway across the map to, not waste time going, alright, I'm on, let's say it's Leo's Memory, and I'm at Moongate Triple Palette, and now the final cipher's all the way at Godkite, for example, and it's at, 95%, he can just connect to a cipher that's nearby, if there is one nearby on that side of the map, and then decode it from there, and then, you save yourself some time, which is good. He has his 10% decode buff, which is great. And then obviously he's a Sui kite merchant. He's a full kite build merchant, kind of. Which is still good for him, but yeah. His shock, his little 1 second Enchantress shock, it can be used obviously to interrupt hunter abilities, whether it's TP, interrupt animations. It could even have some level of quote-unquote balloon rescuing capabilities if you time it properly. And of course, it's rechargeable, it's infinite, which means whether playstyle to some degree is ineffective on him. I say some degree because obviously it does have a really long cooldown for just a literal yeah, for a literal 1 second stun, it's an extremely long cooldown. And not to mention, that's not even beginning to speak for the actual recharge time, assuming you're not in your little electric zappy zap field. But he can still, there is something, and that obviously because it's rechargeable, it does give him some level of rebound potential, But his weaknesses. Similar to Archer, he has reduced heartbeat range, which means less rotation, which means by the time you actually are aware that the hunter is chasing you, the hunter's actually closer to you than you would actually want them to be, which is obviously a no-no. That is not something that we like, because we want to be able to actually, rotate the hunter properly and have a chance to survive and not eat shit and die. Not to mention, he doesn't have that many better, there are better options in terms of him himself with his job, because all he really is just, like I said earlier, he's a Sui kite merchant. So it's if you're picking Prisoner, he's just a raw kiter on a full kite build, and that's about it, aside from the 1 second shock. And if you're just doing that for to play a decoder, you are damn near literally better off picking any decoder that's not like him, or something like Lawyer or Mind's Eye, for example, or just him but worse, because they can't decode ciphers from halfway across the map. If you're gonna play Prisoner, you might as well just pick Pharaoh Lady or something, that's my 2 cents on that point at that for his weaknesses.
Yeah, so just to add to this, previously Prisoner was ranked higher a few versions ago because of audience effect. Now that he is the only consistent character in solo ranking that you can consistently make use of the benefit of audience effect. But now, since audience effect has been nerfed, that that merit no longer exists either. Yeah, in terms of decoder picks, definitely Pharaoh Lady and Mechanic, they both have a higher priority than Prisoner. Ultimately, as is mentioned here in the document, rock fighting still has higher priority. If you naturally require Sui build to enhance your kiting abilities, then your options are limited in the first place. When you have more information, especially when you're not solo kiting, you have a better idea on how where the ciphers with progress are, how to properly arrange, plan around your ciphers that you want to decode. Then the benefit of connecting ciphers and decoding another cipher from one cipher is slightly reduced as well. But this character ultimately is relatively suited to solo ranking. But yeah, when it comes to very high starred matches in CN, most people duo rank. So yeah, that's also one of the reasons why Prisoner perhaps isn't ranked as high as you might expect.
Yeah, that would definitely do it. I don't really have any problems or debates with it. I'm just yeah, this is one of those things where it's unfortunately time passes, characters fall off, meta changes, and different weaknesses that people would think are relevant just get exploited by the hunters as time passes. It happens. That's just meta. That's kind of how that goes.
Mm.
So all in all, yeah, I don't really disagree too hard.
Mm.
It's just a more of a, like, obviously personal taste. I value just the decoding across map a little bit more, but I definitely don't think that he's anything higher than A minus, because that's even where I put him in my own tier list. So yeah.
Mm. Okay, next we proceed on to Female Dancer. This is also a character whose strength has slided down a bit in the past few versions, or in the past few years in general. Her peak tier pick rate is 1.3%, which is only 37th. This is definitely on the lower end and goes to show that teams that form around the support centered on female dancer still has a relatively low priority with so many other stronger support options available. Um, Her P tier win rate is pretty high actually at 21.2%, which is 11th place. But her peak tier draw rate is on the lower end, which is 28.7% at 31st place. Her ban rate is 0.2% at 22nd place, and her S1 knowledge points value is pretty high at 23k937, which is 12th place, and her A100 knowledge points value is 10k203, which is 38th place, also on the lower end. Currently, like her music boxes still provide consistent value, especially when fighting. But there's nothing like overpowered in terms of the music boxes anymore. The music boxes still have generally like good versatility and decently high performance floor when combined with the slide dancing thing. And the mechanic of the slow box fundamentally means that she gets countered by a few hunters. Her guidance is especially strong in on two-story areas because of the dropping speed boost. Her main body has slide, which allows her to create value by simply putting down a music box on open ground and then using slide. A music box placed under drop pallets is like very brain dead, but it is also the option that creates the most consistent value out of each music box. Placing down boxes in advance when supporting it doesn't really waste too much of her own time, and can like buy way more time for decoding. And dealing with like mixed red blue music boxes from the hunter perspective is pretty annoying and wastes a lot of hunter time. Also, she has certain capabilities when it comes to like group support, protecting survivors that are alive by dropping down, either type of music box. But like compared to other support options, that doesn't create as much team value. In terms of weaknesses, female dancer is a character that you can drop down a music box, for example, like on open ground or in a next to a pallet, but you don't have any measures to stop the hunter from breaking the music box, which means that your items get depleted very quickly. Like three items, they just like quickly vanish if the hunter just actually commits to breaking the music boxes. In the current meta, like the raw stats of the music boxes just aren't enough, and there are better options when it comes to either containment or support. But yeah, this character has nothing to do with being overpowered right now.
I agree with this. I think for my own tier list, again, just referencing it, my own tier list, I put her in A minus, and I guess I was just more so thinking of her team synergy as a whole because of obviously things with like slow boxes and like really annoying corners on like Arms Factory or Red Church, for example. But it's like, in hindsight, it's just like in the current meta game where it's just like you really just want like actual contact support damn near, or like some core of like not more so tanking hits, but just like sustainability kind of. Dancer boxes, they just unfortunately don't provide that. They're like very
Yeah, and also something you have been mentioning in the past, when talking about characters in the past few tiers, insolence reduces the
that
effectiveness of the
does
slowdown. Well, yeah.
exactly, yeah. Insolence is obviously one of her biggest, hardcore counters as well, which is why like I already don't like contact harassers as is, but you still gotta respect the fact that they exist. But when it comes for like insolence, uh yeah, man, insolence just makes Dancer like explode. Unfortunately, that is just the truth. Cause oh boy, does that not like the reduction from insolence is just the fact that it applies on just control effects in general, which make it so that way that her entire gimmick is just non-existent. It makes it tough on her. It does. It really does just make it tough on her, which obviously does suck. And I feel for Dancer, like in Dancer's case specifically, she is such a team oriented character, if you understand what I mean. She like requires like a lot of setup for her to really shine, and in a rank
True.
environment you don't have the privilege of having that setup in a rank environment. Like, you just don't. Unfortunately speaking, like, we don't live in a, you know, perfect world where you have that privilege. Like, she requires, like, you really need to go out of your way to make Dancer shine. Like, you really got to go the extra mile to, like, be like, wow, this Dancer, like, her support, her, like, you know, her boxes, like, you know, A really did something in this match. Like, you have to go out your way for that. You just, blatantly speaking, you do. And in ranked, you just don't have that, and it just makes her more of a liability when you actually can't go out of your way to, you know, get what you want.
Yeah, true. Even in like proper tourney matches, players usually would favor like hard supporters over soft support characters like Dancer, but we don't see her picked very often in the recent like KOA qualifiers either. So yeah.
It's just like, why pick her? It's kind of, it's a thing of like, you know, what does she do? Like, kind of thing. Like, what does she do? Like, look at look at what Dancer's on the team. Like, when a Dancer's on the team, like, you look at her and it's just like, what does bro do? Like, look at me and tell me, look at me and tell me the last Dancer match you saw in, like, Com, and you just saw her and you're just like, yeah, that Dancer really shined, you know? Like, she really, like, did something amazing in that match. That's just the reality. Like, that is just the reality, unfortunately. But, moving on to the next one, which is a personal hot take for me.
Oh, okay.
Escapologist. Now, me, I put that boy in A+ tier. Yeah,
Whoa.
I put that boy in A+. So for me, this is a really personal hot take in my case. But let's go down through the stats. So we have Escape with a peak tier pick rate of just 0.7%, coming in at 46, but a win rate of 21.8%, coming in at 4th, and a draw rate damn near as high, 30.6%, coming in at 5th, with a ban rate of just 0.1%, coming in at 36, and his S1 knowledge value only capped out at 15k, coming in at 40th, and then his A100 coming in at 9.3k, practically 9.4k, 9.388, coming in at 44th. So he is really on the unpopular end, like extremely. I can't believe that they put this character so low. I'm not gonna lie. I'm very high on Escapologist now after his buff. I'm pretty sure we all know when Escapologist came out. When he was in trailer, I thought he was amazing. And then when we got to actually play him in test server, I called him mid because he was genuinely just mid. Then he got his buff, and I'm like, okay, now he's like a really good character. Like, now I actually really like the character. And I've always, in every tier list that I make, I always put him up there like high end of A+, because for me, he's just that good. Like, the smoke bomb is great, you know, he can kite to some degree effectively. Obviously, the free hit that doesn't give presence is great as well. You can manipulate it to some degree. The ability to technically insta-rescue after that smoke hit and preventing a double down, like, it's very strong, in my opinion. But let's see what they cover for his strengths. So, first and foremost, we have his smoke bomb being very effective at hunter sight blocking and can create multiple transition/distance gaining opportunities as long as the hunter is not too close. This is true. If the hunter is too close to you, don't even bother. Don't even bother using the throughball. Don't even bother using the throughball. However, if you have some level of distance on the hunter and you chuck it forward into an area and the hunter's not like right on your ass, the hunter practically has to just flip a coin and pray to God that they win in order to, you know, actually find you. Because you get a movement speed boost, they don't actually, like, see your, like, footsteps. You kind of just get to do whatever you want in your little domain expansion. Not to mention, the hunter, the smoke screen can also counter hunter charge skills or flying objects. So think of things like Wax Artist Wax, Fool's Gold's Pickaxe, Ripper Foggies. Things that specifically are thrown, though, it doesn't actually work on things that are, like, inside, if that makes sense. So, like, an example I have is, like, Axeboy Fireballs, for example. Because the flames are technically in the game, I guess, counted as their own thing, and they can just fly throughout the map whenever the hell and wherever they want. If an Axeboy pulls a fireball from inside the throughball smoke, then that's just it. It'll go right through the smoke, and, you know, you're shit out of luck. which is just a little, I guess, one of his weaknesses I kind of went into already, which I hope to see that they explain. Not to mention, obviously, to continue on his strengths, passive abilities give him a good floor when kiting / rescuing, being the smoke screen, not the smoke screen, the free hit, like the smoke illusion
Yeah,
thing.
that one, yep.
Yeah. And then, of course, his ability to swap rocket chairs, which means that hunters that are great at camping, you know, think of things like Bonbon, if they want to, like, giant claw their way to, like, the corner of the map to cut out the rescuer, you can just deny that from them, because you have, like, a, 47-meter range to move the chair to any chair that's within that 47-meter range on the map, which is really good. However, he does have his fair share of weaknesses that I kind of already went into a little bit. And that is that the Thruble cannot deal with emergency situations. Emergency situations being if the hunter is right on your ass. Like, you can't, like, if the hunter's right on your ass or cuts you off, this Thruble's not really helping you. And of course, him having 2 items means that he can get withered out because they are limited items, not regenerative. So he does obviously get hurt by withered gameplay style. And his kiting obviously is not that strong. I've mentioned it 1,000 times before. Escape can kind of just get chased, TBH, unless it's specifically a hunter that he's designed to counter. Think of something like Goatman, for example, or like Hullabaloo to some degree. Other than that, like, he can kind of just get out-gimmicked and chased. And then obviously the smoke bomb and the passive ability is, you know, not that strong when, you know, obviously, like I just said earlier, being cut off from the chair, because you don't have any movement tools to actually get past the hunter, aside from your little free hit. But the free hit doesn't give attack recovery, so you don't even make any real quote-unquote meaningful distance from it. I just still can't believe that they put him down this low. I'm not gonna lie.
Really? Well, this character... Oh, not gonna lie. I was, yeah. I can understand arguments for him being both higher than this, like a good bit higher than this, or a good bit lower than this. For like arguments that claim Escapologist is much higher than B+ tier, based on the stats, his win rate and draw rate are both really good. But like on the other hand, considering how like unoften he is picked and how low his overall knowledge points values are, it shows that in like 100+ stars, a rank environment, it is difficult to like exert this character's potential. Yes, I mean this tier list does place emphasis on potential, but it's just like ultimately in a rank environment, for example, the ability to swap chairs isn't something that you can readily plan your game around when for the survivor team. As a rescuer also, like the possibility of being chased itself is already like a pretty big weakness. And in my opinion, the 15% decoding debuff does not warrant how to some hunters his how exploitable his kiting is. It is indeed also true that after you use the 2 items, he's just like a sitting duck, a pure whiteboard. So yeah. The character, you know, just kind of does a bit of everything. In terms of rescuer, in terms of like functionality, but like none of them seem to be able to create like a game-changing effect in a rank environment. The smoke bomb itself also, like it's unable to seriously interrupt the hunter's chase because his location gets revealed after the smoke screen disappears for a while. There's also like a pretty big cooldown in between each smoke screen, so yeah.
I just think that the chair swapping is just too strong to not value, but I guess this is more of its tournament performance than anything, I guess, because it's just like, assuming you're going up against things like Goatman or like Hullabaloo, etc., and we all know that me personally, I don't ban those characters because of this, so it's like, I guess my personal bias is towards the fact that, like, I don't ban those characters, I let those characters out, so Escape does well into those characters, which is why I would then have him higher on my own end.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to just my own, like, actual, like, compared to, like, the general BPs and whatnot, depending on what is obviously the more popular bans it picks in CN ranked.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think I'm not gonna lie though. I think the most I'd bargain is like a bare minimum, like a low, like mid to low A tier, just flat A tier. Like I think that's like the lowest I'd bargain. I'm not even joking.
Mm.
I just his ability to just negate camping hunters, especially when camping hunters are somewhat prominent in rank meta, things like Naiad and Bonbon, like, for me, that's just too invaluable to, like, be like, well, yeah, he still, like, sucks, and it's like, but, like, he does it, though, in my opinion. Not sucks, but, like, you know what I mean.
I can kind of see the argument there, I guess. Okay, next up we have Professor. This is a character that is once again very unpopular in rank and is picked much more often in tourney matches than in rank matches. His pick rate is only 1%, like a flat 1%, which is 43rd place. And his win rate and draw rate are both pretty high, actually. His win rate is 21%, which is 13th place, and his draw rate is 30.1%, which comes up at at 7th place. He doesn't get banned. His ban rate is 0%. And his S1 knowledge points value is pretty much just 20k, like 20,008, which is 23rd place. And his A100 knowledge points value is 10k 223, coming in at 36th place. If it weren't for the fact that this tier list accounts for a 100 plus rank level, this character probably wouldn't be ranked this high. But when it comes to, like, players who are actually skilled with Professor, you're gonna see the likelihood of a successful scale block increasing, as well as, professors knowing how to abuse, like, the gimmicks that are, rewarded to this character. Successful scale blocks are, like, creates pretty good value. The time that the hunter gets stunned for is really long. It's comparable to, like, a flare gun. And technically, this character has, like, infinite regenerating items, which means that he doesn't get withered out in back and forth map pressure situations, and he has room for rebound kiting. Skills after his buff was like a year and a half ago can now counter, like, certain hunter abilities, certain stun abilities. For example, like, Hermit's electric shot or Anne's cat. It's not really like a perfect counter because there's definitely room for mind gaming for hunters that have stun abilities when they're chasing Professor. But hey, it's at least an option compared to previously where this character is just like a sitting duck, a pure whiteboard. Character is still pretty weak against, like, damage abilities though. Teammates, who are able to pick up the Professor's scales, it gives them an extra layer of support. I'm still really confused back in the Koa 6 meta when the combination of Professor and Antiquarian was really strong that they decided to nerf Professor instead of Antiquarian. Previously, he had 3 starting scales, like, scattered around the map, and they nerfed it to 1. Now it's 2, which, is really still isn't that much. His support abilities is really lackluster, but it's better than nothing. In terms of weaknesses, as I've been hinting previously, skills can only block regular attacks, and they're not effective against hunters that move fast. Think, like, Opera Singer. If you just hit the scale, yeah, it stalls you in place for 4 seconds, but, 4 seconds of distance that Survivor gains isn't really that much for an Opera Singer. You can afford to hit it in some cases. The scale CD, especially after a successful block, is way too long. Like, 65 seconds. If you use it when you're at half health during first chase, it is very unlikely that you'll be able to use it again during your rebound kite. Failed scale blocks puts it in a massive 40-second CD as well, and leaves the Professor very vulnerable for the remaining kite. So his overall versatility and performance floor is just pretty low. Skills can be, like, inconvenient for teammates to, like, actively pick up. It's not something that teammates will go out of their way to walk in that direction out of their originally planned route to pick up the scales. And shitting scales right next to the teammate that needs support is, like, very dangerous and almost never a valid option. But yeah, just a professor who knows what they're doing, like, and can properly body block, it still gives the hunter an annoying time. And ultimately, I guess in, like, back and forth map pressure situations, infinite items is always a benefit. But this was a placement that surprised me personally.
I would have to agree, to be honest. I understand the logic of why he's so low down here, but I think, like, again, for me personally, I put him upwards in the I put him somewhere in the A tier. I'm pretty sure I put him in A minus. So it's like he's right around here, and I had, like, the same rationale just because of the fact that, like, he can get baited. Oh, no, never mind. I was thinking of someone named in Balmer. I put him in.
That's gonna be an interesting conversation as well.
Yeah,
But
that's gonna be an interesting
yeah.
one. But yeah, I put Professor in A plus, and it's just because of the fact that like the CC, I guess the somewhat CC immunity and his gimmick of slowing down the hunter means that it pairs really well with defense mechanism. So obviously, if you're running something like Windows Professor, for example, and you are injured and you have max defense mechanism while injured, not only does the hunter, run slower and swing slower because of his inherent debuff to the hunter's swinging speed, but Professor at that point in time is also vaulting faster, which means he can just damn near vault in front of the hunter's face. And it doesn't matter if the hunter has like the reaction time of God, the game's math will just be like, no, you don't get the hit. Then also obviously animation cancel tech, which allows him to greed windows or palettes that he typically couldn't greed. Like, I feel like they're just like missing out like a lot of technical stuff with Professor that he can like really abuse hardcore, which is why they view him so low, and they're only really emphasizing like his lackluster support, which I do agree, right? I do agree that his support is very lackluster because, like you stated earlier, you're not really going to go out your way and be like, all right, I got to get that scale. That scale is going to be really fucking game-changing for me. You're not going to go out of your way for that. But it's like, even without, like, even with his support being lackluster, his support is still there, and it's still an option and a viable one to some degree at that. Because if a survivor is able to land a successful scale from the shedding, that's still good. Like, it still sends the hunter back a good amount of distance, and that's obviously time for the team.
It buys the equivalent of 1 second of time, but that's like obviously not the point of contest here. The point of contest is like Professor's own kiting, which first of all, like if you don't like shed like scales near your teammates or body block using your gimmick, then you're a non-stick pan. That's first of all. Number two, and the chances of like successful body blocks in this game is not that high. Number two, you can still kill Professor very easily with damage abilities. If there was ever an option for Professor to use scales to block, for example, Smiley's Rocket Dash or Ripper's Foggy Blade, or like other types of like flying damage abilities, then he would be much better as well. But like this just allows Professor to get easily counterpicked by the hunter on the other side, and his recent buff, which makes it so that the scales work against the Sun Hunters. That's not like a perfect counter either. For many hunters, even if you hit the scales, like you can still catch up. The CD is very long.
Yeah.
It's not something like, for example, magician or acrobat or patient, where the cooldown is like fairly short, 10 seconds, 12 seconds. You can use multiple consecutively, which means that you can ensure your safety for an extended period of time. Professor can like save his life using the scale once, but afterwards, maybe it takes a bit of extra time compared to like a regular tool being used by acro or magician, but the hunter can still easily catch up, and it's unlikely that they're going to get a rebound kite.
Yeah. Oh man, this is just a case of tourney survivor versus not a ranked survivor, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, this is definitely a character that can be played around in tourney, especially considering how hard he counters like Goatman. And the body blocking stuff, planning is easier to execute in like with proper VC and communication. But in rank, he still leans more towards a non-stick pan without proper support, and the likelihood of effective support is relatively low.
Yeah. Oh, my poor little Professor, tournament merchant, little tournament merchant. Well, moving on to the next one, which is a hot take for me again. Oh my god. Aeroplanist, what are we doing down here? With a pick rate of just 0.8% coming in at 44th, but a win rate of 21.3% coming in at 9th, and a draw rate of 30.9% coming in at 6th, with a ban rate of nothing. Nobody bans him. No one's going in ranked and being like, let's ban that Aeroplanist, coming in at the mutually shared 36th by like every character with 0%. And then his S1 capping out at 25k 707, which is landing him in 6th. But his A100 is going at 9.7k, coming in at 40 seconds. So I guess this just means that like his top 10 are like a bare minimum. His top 10 are like the committed top 10.
Yeah.
And then other than that, it's just like there's Aeroplanist players, and then his top 10 are Aeroplanist mains, you know? But yeah, just, oh my god, this is a character I had in S tier, bro. So it's like, Jesus. Onto his strengths, we have his jetpack. Has no force wing, and it can gain distance instantly, and he can also traverse all terrains with good controls. Obviously, you know, going up, down, left, right, you know, select start, BA, BA, you know, you can do it all with the jetpack, especially with your hover as well. And he has one of the most consistent floors amongst all distance gaining items. Yep, because again, it's instant. You just click it and it'll go in whatever direction it says it's gonna go. Hover prevents from being intercepted when rescuing, which allows him to bring tide. Yep, if the hunter cuts you off, you go into the air, use a jetpack, and then the hunter is now playing catch up with you to the chair. And he decodes, you know, faster by 2%. He touches Cypher, and, you know, the Cypher now decodes 2% faster, but, you know, 2% is not really that crazy of a buff where it's like, oh my god, we need to, like, abuse this like we do Audience Effect, when Audience Effect was still broken in Tournament. So, you know, but it's still there to be noted. However, weaknesses. No particular advantage with the amount of distance gained from each jetpack, and then the 15-second cooldown makes him vulnerable to hunters that move fast, and bringing only tide does not allow him to kite consistently in the current meta, especially with his reduced pallet dropping speed. That's really it?
Yeah. This character, no, the role that this character takes is secondary rescuer, or like a strong container character that occasionally can afford to bring tide. But bringing tide is okay, but that also means that, first of all, you cannot afford to have Aeroplanist be the only rescuer. You can only have him as the secondary rescuer. Otherwise, just having Titan on him means that he can die like decently fast against a good number of hunters that like move fast. As you can perhaps tell from the peak tier pick rate and the A100 knowledge points value, this is a character that can only shine the best in the hands of the most skilled players. Just regular Survivor players picking up Aeroplanist can just actually be a liability to the team because of his like low pallet dropping speed and people not knowing how to use jetpacks properly. Obviously, this character has like great potential, as you can see from the win rate and draw rate. But ultimately, this is a character where if you do not bring Tide, and you bring something like Broken Windows, this character is kind of a non-stick pan. If you bring Tide Turner, then his kiting becomes pretty exploitable. The 20% like pallet dropping debuff is not something to be overlooked and really silly. Previously, when Aeroplanist first came out during the KOA 7 meta, this can be viewed as something that, you know, makes him touchable by hunters in between each jetpack. Now it straight up just hinders him.
Especially after the distance nerfs. I mean, okay, I can understand that, especially after his distance nerfs that he received, where obviously, like, you know, he doesn't get as much significant distance per jetpack as he once did before when he was in, you know, like, his prime and whatnot. I can get that, right? Okay, I could be like, you know what, alright, I understand that, I respect that. But man, I feel like we're really just overlooking the fact that he can just get a free injureless rescue on any hunter damn near with hover and a jetpack. And that's like, and that's not even like including if the fact that there's like, you know, a cheerleader on the team, which is a, you know, obviously they had for an S tier. So it's like cheerleader or Aeroplanist, you know, really bread and butter synergy right there. So it's like, I feel like we're just really undervaluing that.
Well, cheerleader inspiring Aeroplanist in the middle of hover in rank matches, that's probably not as likely to carry out without proper communication. And furthermore, you don't have, like, if you want to get value out of Aeroplanist, depends on what you want, obviously. If you want to burn out the hover, you can try and, like, and you have some ability that allows you to like teleport back to the chair, or like you move very fast, you can like try to intercept and then burn out hover, and then Aeroplanist will be an easy catch target during second chase. If you don't want to burn out hover, you can always guard in front of the chair and you can hit Aeroplanist. Hover being only once means that if you use it to prevent being intercepted, your kiting becomes pretty weak later. If you like don't use it when being intercepted, like you risk being intercepted.
My goat, my goat arrow. I could compromise to a low A plus.
I don't think the character's that good.
He's just, I don't know, man. I just like the free rescue hovers is that broke. The distance is great. And it's like, I think I get what they mean though. Obviously, with the fact that you mentioned earlier that he can obviously become a non-stick pan because he has 0 support capabilities. Because let's be honest, no one is doing hover pushback tech on like right next to the hunter in a rank match. But I don't know. I don't think I could like. Damn, I just can't. Like, I feel like the weaknesses, I don't want to say that they're, like, exaggerating the weaknesses to some degree, but I low-key feel like they are, I guess, putting a more burden on the weaknesses he does have that can be exploited in comparison to what he could get, what he gives in return. But but the same can be said about me, vice versa, so...
I mean, this character definitely has room for rising higher because of his, like, very high win rate and draw rate, but it's just that, like, you need to be really skilled at him. Yeah. And like this character isn't played often at all, so yeah, in rank.
Not enough. It's just the same like 5 people in 100+ star rank.
Yeah. Okay, next up we have Thief. Now, this is a character that I think has been underrated. Yes, Thief. This is a character that I think has been underrated for a very long time, and in some ways I'm pretty glad that he's placed as high as he is. He wouldn't be nearly as high if it weren't for the fact that this is 100+ stars, but he is. His peak tier pick rate is very low, even lower than Aeroplanist at only 0.6%, which is 47th place. However, he has the single highest win rate among all survivors, which is 22.7% at first place. However, his peak tier draw rate is also pretty low, at 26.4%, which is only 46th place. He rarely ever gets banned, only gets banned 0.1% of the time. His highest knowledge points value in the end of the previous season was 20k and 25, which is 24th place. And then his 800 knowledge points value is very low, only 9,267, which is 46th place. This is a character that is very extreme, because against hunters that he can't kite, he straight up just can't kite them. But at the same time, his support is really disgusting. His support is especially effective at protecting survivors that are alive, because you don't even need to shine the hunter's face. Just by like shining any, like putting the flashlight anywhere, like on the hunter's body, would cause their skills to be silenced. And it's like, it lasts a while even if you move off the flashlight a bit, so you don't even have to shine on them like the full 39 seconds of your flashlight durability. Silence obviously disrupts the hunter's pursuit path. As long as you can make the hunter a whiteboard in like key situations, your teammate can be safe. It disrupts the hunter's pursuit path on open ground especially, and silences their skills. Does not give them much room to maneuver as long as the starting distance is enough. Which means that you keep a fairly safe distance between you and the hunter, and like keeping it at a distance where the flashlight can also reach them. The flashlight can also consistently blind hunters following pallet breaks / window vaults by hunters. When they vault a window, just after you vault, just put down a flashlight there. It's guaranteed to blind them. Also, the blinding doesn't get affected by stuff like addiction and rage. So this means that no matter how many anti-harassment skills you bring, you still get stunned for the same duration against the thief. He can carry out like just by the way support in certain situations, the same as like protecting survivors that are alive, but just like shining your flashlight onto the hunter and silencing them can be very annoying. And without the ability to use skills, there's very little counterplay on the hunter's end. However, kiting is just very inconsistent. Like if you're a hunter player that is able to, use skills at long distances or have mechanics just like fundamentally counter thief, then thief dies pretty easily. Um, Hunters that move fast or have skills that trigger at mid to long distances can relatively like consistently deal with thief when thief is like solo kiting, which means that he is a relatively risky pick. But like, just I understand why people think that thief is bad, but you gotta understand that in like C and P tier matches, the thief players are just the definition of disgusting, perhaps on a higher level than Doctor, because like it's only after you've experienced the process of like forcibly following the person who is like dead on chair or just got rescued once, but there's like a thief chasing you behind your back, shining a flashlight at you, making a whiteboard for like a minute, how awful the feeling is.
Huh.
Yeah, this is just not a character who's like, even if you want to buff him in the eyes of some people who thinks that he is weak, he's not suitable for like a flat buff. He can only be like, adjusted. His regular like versatility in terms of kiting needs to be buffed, but his support capabilities also need to be nerfed. Just a very extreme character overall, and that shows from his stats.
Yeah. I guess it just values because the way NA looks at him is from a kiting perspective, and they don't care for his support, myself included, TBH, and then over NCN, obviously, vice versa. They don't give a shit about his kiting, to some degree. It's just like, alright, how does he contribute to the team? And obviously, on paper and in actuality, if you're stalking the hunter for a minute straight and, silencing their abilities, that's obviously valuable. I'm just like, just chase the thief? Kind of. You chase the thief and then he goes boom boom. That's kind of like my thing. And they even acknowledge that his kiting is inconsistent and he gets countered by most current meta hunters. So I'm just like, as great as the support is, how does he support if he gets chased and dies immediately? Damn near. That's where I guess that's where my concern lands.
Yeah, that is definitely like a valid point. Like his kiting is inconsistent, but just against you either get countered to dead by you either get countered to death by thief or you counter thief very hard. That's it. Yeah.
Oh gosh. I would still have him. Like I'm pretty sure I have him, and like I had him as like the worst character in the game, somewhere around there. I was just like, yeah, no, you don't even get B tier, buddy. You get like your own special tier.
Oh, jeez, that's yeah.
But moving on, we have Wildling, which is another character I rated very high. Wildling has a peak tier pick rate of 1.3% coming in at 37th, a win rate of 20.5 coming in at 17th, a draw rate of Jesus Christ only 27% coming in at 45th, a ban rate of 0.5%. And then his coming in at 18th, and then for his knowledge points, S1 capping out at 17k 589, putting him at 34th, and then A100 capping out at 10k 377, coming in at 33rd. So, a lot of his strengths. I'm sure we all know one of his many strengths is his survivability. He is not a first chase option for any hunter and remains difficult to chase for many tier 2 presence hunters because boar is broke. Like, the concept of boar in itself is broke. How they handle it, obviously different. But the concept of boar itself is broke. It takes 2 hits, it moves about as fast, if not sometimes faster than some hunters in the game. Like, he's just not, if you don't have presence to like gimmick him off, or you just don't like hard counter him, or like just move that fast, like Wildling is just not a suitable first chase. Not to mention, he has infinite items because Wildling's boar is regenerative in terms of when he can get on it again. So that means that, they say it right here actually, he's the only rescuer that can actually survive Wither game. He doesn't get his items withered out because his item is his pet, And then obviously the boar riding gives him rescuing and support abilities, and the boar is excellent at preventing being intercepted and bringing a double down and getting double down. And not to mention, with proper team coordination, the support capabilities from the boar being pushes on balloons or pushes during kite, it helps a lot. However, weaknesses. The boar only goes in a straight line and can easily be dodged by hunters, making it very low on the versatility scale. The only way you get value out of the boar push is if you're in a narrow area or, again, hyper coordination. Very hyper coordination. Yeah, and then it goes on to say, Wildling must plan whether to use boar before rescuing or risk being doubled down, or use it after rescuing or risk being intercepted on the way to his rescue. His regular movement speed is low and makes him very vulnerable when he's on cooldown. He has like that 4% movement speed debuff. And then he's vulnerable against hunters that can deal, you know, quote-unquote true damage and force him off the board. Think of things like Gamekeeper Hook or Hullabaloo, for example, who, for whatever reason, just forces him straight off. Why, I don't really know, but yeah. Wax Artist Hot Wax, I'm pretty sure also as well. Yep. And then, obviously, his low floor, on top of his low floor, meaning as in like he has, you know, like there are his like Aeroplanist similar, his players and then his mains. You can't just like pick up and play Wildling. He has a 25% debuff, which makes him really slow. He has the equivalent of forward in terms of a debuff, except he doesn't do anything of what forward can do. It's like a very much like, you ever like when you were a kid, when you were drinking juice, if any of your parents ever like poured a shit ton of water in it to like dilute it so it can be more quote unquote healthy, so you're not drinking as much like concentrated sugar. That's practically what Wildling is, except like an extremely diluted version. That's like the best way I could like put it.
Yeah, just this character's like support capabilities are nowhere near as good as forward. Yet he suffers the same level of decoding debuff. For many, like in many instances, I think the weakness of not being able to use boar like both before and after rescuing someone is a big issue, because like he's one of the easiest characters to get double down because of his low movement speed. If you don't use boar like after rescuing, and in which case you obviously risking intercepted, right? So some Wildling players would actually opt to go for like flywheel tide, so like up down, but that's also like really damn risky because you're using both traits, you're using both flywheel to prevent yourself from being intercepted and tied when rescuing, which means that like with both traits used on the hunter's face at once, you become an easy target for the hunters to like play around because you have no BT. They know that you do not have VT.
Yeah.
Like this character's like overall support capabilities still very limited. To be honest, like the strength of Wildling, in many cases, without the Wildling himself getting adjusted, depends on like how many hunters in the meta Wildling can consistently deal with. Back in the Opera meta, he was like
One of the
he was
most picked rescuers.
yeah, he was a meta pick. But now with stuff like Hullabaloo, you know, it's just like it kind of screws them over. And you know, like if hunters are facing a Wildling, they tend to pick hunters that can deal real damage as well. Wax Artist, Breaking Wheel, both are very popular characters in CN and actually in NAU as well, in higher tier matches. So
Yeah. I put him in A plus because I just value his sustainability with the boar. Like I think that survivability is for me. I just again just value that. I really value the sustainability that he has. That's just a me thing. I truly do. However, obviously I can I can see why the sustainability is not as valued because unfortunately speaking, his sustainability is somewhat conditional in terms of what you have to give up. If I do A, I don't get B. If I do B, I don't get A. And his entire kit practically working around that sucked. It does. It is obviously, as we can see, like as I'm, you know, thinking more into it, obviously it is a big hindrance. What do I think it's a warrant of a B plus hindrance? No, I still would. I think then with all of this considered, I think maybe I would just drop him from A plus to A minus. I would just put him there because I still think the sustainability in him being the only rescuer in game with an infinite item is something to be valued. It is something to, you know, keep into consideration and be like, you know what, he does still have this in his little back pocket, which is great.
yeah. Okay, next we proceed on to Enchantress. Wow, have I seen way too much of this character in tourney matches recently. Her P tier pick rate is 2%, which is 25th place, and she has a pretty high win rate at 21.4%, which is 7th place. All other stats are like mediocre. Her draw rate is 28.3%, which is 37th place. Her ban rate is 0.1% at 36th place. Her knowledge points value at S1 is 21k586, coming in at 17th place. And her A100 knowledge points value is 10k908, coming in at 21st place. 21st place. Her gimmick, the ape curse, is classified as a hard harass ability, right? It's a stun ability, and it can gain multiple charges, which means that she has certain supporting capabilities, especially when balloon harassing, because it is the method that consistently wastes the hunter's time, because the hunter has to like hit the rescued survivor that was previously ballooned again and enter attack recovery animation. Now that she has one ape curse at the start of the game, it gives her the basis to like carry out support, like the starting bit of money you need to build a company, right? Saving the ape curses by the end of the first kite gives her good room to rebound kite. Her rebound kite potential is something that is often talked about when we talk about Enchantress's strengths. And also, like healing, getting healed by teammates significantly increases the number of ape curses in matches that are dragged long. This is what seriously makes Enchantress disgusting in many cases, especially along with the Doctor buff 2 seasons ago. Now the combination of Enchantress plus Doctor has returned to terrorize hunters in ranked matches once again. Except that now the strong party is now Doctor. Because of how slowly Enchantress gains ape curse stacks when teammates are nearby, now it is more valid for the hunter to target the Enchantress instead of the Doctor. In terms of weaknesses, yeah, as I've been hinting previously, like Enchantress doesn't gain ape curses fast when teammates are nearby. So like she has like bad synergy with stuff like what with other supporters, and like doesn't really work with broken windows, because like you need to be near the hunter to gain ape curse stacks as well, and just infinitely marathoning does not allow her to gain ape curse stacks at all. Fundamentally, her like skills are classified as multiple like short stuns, so they get countered very easily by desperate fight, and might even render other like hard supporters on the team render their support ineffective because of like how many stacks of addiction or desperate fight the hunter already has when they have downed the Enchantress. So yeah, like the ape curse stacks, they're good, especially for balloon harassment, but because of how slow it games when teammates are nearby, that it's close distance and it has bad synergy with broken windows, as well as it gets countered by desperate fight, she doesn't get ranked higher.
I had Enchantress in my own tier list at A plus tier, and I kind of feel, I guess, it's more so some not really recency bias, but it's just how she performs in the meta right now, because she's somewhat decent against Qist, obviously interrupting him when he's abusing Maxwell's demon. She's phenomenal against Queen Bee. Kind of, to be honest, in my opinion, she like hard counters the fuck out of Queen Bee, but and in terms of rank, like Queen Bee doesn't get banned that often, despite how strong she is. In my personal experience, she kind of just like vibes there. I personally ban Queen Bee, but the most consistent bans, like it's kind of like a toss-up. Sometimes you'll still see like people banning like Goatman, Ivy, and like Opera Singer, Goatman, Ivy, and Hullabaloo or something, So she does great into two of the current highest meta picks. She still does great into Goatman. She can do things against Ivy and Opera Singer. She can kind of work well against Hullabaloo. Her support, in my opinion, is like, it's obviously not the craziest thing ever, but it's available and it still stalls time. I kind of feel, to be honest, like, while I get it, she has very bad synergy with the entire team as a whole when she's on the receiving end of the support. I feel like what she's giving in return when she is the one doing the support, and it's just like a good like filler slap on to like filter out the meta, I think that is like something to be valued for her specifically.
Yeah, they do like acknowledge her strength, especially when balloon supporting. But with supporting survivors that are alive, you need to like body block to gain extra curses, or just have have the person being chased previously heal you, or you have previously healed them,
Yeah.
to gain your curse stacks, because you still gain curse stacks slow when teammates are nearby. That doesn't change.
Yeah. But even just like little things, like I've done with things, so it's like obviously I guess I'm speaking this like just from my own personal experience, even from last season when I like grinded to like 112 stars with like Enchantress Archer. It was kind of just the thing of like even doing little things like just stunning the hunter like around pallets to make them like fearful, or, like being around there because they're afraid of like Enchantress stun into stun tech, you know, because that buys time even with the addiction. Like little things like that, it's like it buys time, like even if it's not like, even if the stacks do build up slow, it does like end up helping out and work out in the long run. And I do just personally feel like there is some level of undervalue to that. I do understand, obviously, you know, Desperate Fight and Addiction do obviously like hard counter her, and if the hunter does see an Enchantress, it's a 90% chance they have Desperate Fight and Addiction, because let's be honest, who wants to get stunned 500 times? That doesn't really sound too fun, I'm sure, unless, you know, y'all, you like getting stunned 500 times?
No.
Yeah.
Enjoy that.
Yeah. So, I do get it. I don't think I personally could just, I don't know, like, it's like, just how she works in the current meta is just really strong for her right now. Like, especially with both in rank and in tournament, Q as being one of the more popular characters.
Well, yeah, she's kind of like a character you need when you need to push for wins, because of how her like balloon harassing gimmick works as well. But based on her low draw rate, it also shows that she's a character who can't really ensure the team's performance floor in many cases.
She's
Like,
an
yeah,
extreme character. It's like
yeah.
you either get her to like go all the way, or you're gonna just be shot down in the foot.
And also, you know, like in Enchantress in rank matches, they have like a 30% chance of canceling attack recovery and instantly dying. Just, oh, that's whatever, you know.
This is true. I will say, out of all weaknesses, I kind of wish they mentioned her dog shit ass range.
Yeah, well, that was like indirectly mentioned because because of, you know, how the document says that she has like bad synergy with
Oh,
broken
with
windows.
broken windows, yeah,
Need to be at close distance with the hunter to gain curse stacks and like stun them.
yeah.
So yeah.
I will say her range is just, oh my god. The day they give Enchantress a range buff, the world heals. Just by 1 meter, just by a singular meter. Just 1 meter, that's all, just one singular meter, that's it. Nothing crazy, just one singular meter.
Yeah. Oh, next.
Oh, but yeah, moving on to this one is really gonna ruffle some feathers. Acrobat. Acrobat is probably one of the most notorious survivors on NA and just in the game's history in general, because when that boy came out, yeah. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. That boy was broke. But especially after his buff. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But he's coming in at a peak tier pick rate of 2.3%, coming in at 18th, a win rate of 19.2%, coming in at 36th, a draw rate of 28.9%, coming in at 22nd, a ban rate of nada, coming in at the shared 36th, with the S1 capping out at 19k, 29 points, coming in at 27th, and then the A100 just at a somewhat low 10k, 477, coming in at 29th. So, Acrobat, I'm sure we all are familiar with Acrobat. He is the, if I had to describe it, he is the non-stickiest pan of non-stickiest pans. All he does is kite, and if he's not kiting and he doesn't run tide, he kind of just sits there and does nothing. But when he does kite, is it filthy? Yes, because his balls are fucking crazy. Bombs can allow for distance and the ability to dodge hunter skills, and has high versatility. He's not reliant on kiting areas at all. He can kite wherever the hell he pleases. You want to kite in an area with no pallets that you can jump over? That's fine. Jump over the damn wall, and now you have a built-in pallet. You want to you want to go to this crazy area and do some like distance and vault in front of the hunter's face? Great, vault in front of the hunter's face. Just do it with a ball, and the hunter practically can't react. And even if they do react, they get put under attack recovery, and you still get a crap ton of distance anyway. He is like the kiter. Like if you had to like if the word kiting was in a dictionary, like in IdentityV terms, his face would be on the picture, you know? That's just where it is. He has 3 bomb types, which is great. He has a total of 6 bombs, being 2 red, 2 white, 2 black. Or what is it? It's like mud, white, and it's like mud. I forgot what the white one is called, and then flame. What's the white one?
Mud, flame, nitro, I think is
Nitro, yeah. Mud, flame, and nitro. So yeah. And then obviously not only do these balls allow him to gain a crap ton of distance, but they have actual effects. Fire silences, nitro decreases interaction speeds for the hunter, whether it's pickup, pallet breaking, window vaulting, you name it. And mud decreases the hunter's movement speed. There is like niches in terms of how the hunter picks it up. I'm pretty sure like if you directly apply it to the hunter, it lasts longer.
Yeah, the effect is supposedly a bit stronger.
Yeah.
The flame lasts for 3 extra seconds, so it's 8 seconds of silencing. The mud is like it slows for an additional 5%, which really isn't that much. And I'm pretty sure like I'm not too sure how the nitro bomb works, but it is more effective in some way. I just forgot how it works.
Yeah, no, because I know there was like some difference between that. Like I remember that there was like there is a difference in that in terms of when you apply it to the hunter directly compared to when the hunter actually just like walks through it in like a narrow alleyway, for example. That I do remember. But as great as that is, he doesn't have infinite items. He has no infinite items, but he has a high number of items. You know, 6 is still, I'm pretty sure, the single highest amount of survivor abilities in the game. I'm pretty sure, like, just baseline for a survivor, if I recall correctly. It's like, I don't think there's the other survivor, assuming the survivor doesn't have infinite items. Like, genuinely, I don't think there is a single survivor out there that has, like, 6 fucking items. Just a pure raw 6 items. Just to
unreleased mercenary.
Okay, yeah, I guess, yeah. Unreleased mercenary, man, all the times. But yeah, so obviously, you know, Mr. Boy has a lot of items, so even withering him out to some fashion doesn't really work too well on him. However, one of his biggest weaknesses is his gate opening debuff, similar to Antiquarian, but the differentiator between him and Antiquarian is that Antiquarian is not the literal, like, textbook definition of what you would call a non-stick pan. Antiquarian can at least support. His support, while he can, you know, launch his balls at the hunter, it's not really meaningful support enough to actually change the game. Like, yeah, an 8-second silence is great if you apply it directly, or a slowdown or an interaction. But it's like, it's not doing as much as people think it does, and it just ends up, it feels like it ends up being a waste. I'm not gonna lie. It feels like it ends up being a waste.
And supporting has way too many limitations. And you can definitely see from the win rate and draw rate, especially the win rate being very low, that this is a character that can't push for wins. In order to contribute to the team, you have to bring Tide. And bringing Tide, you know, it doesn't make you that difficult to chase. In most instances, the hunter just sees an acrobat on the map and like finds him disgusting and just isn't going to touch him. So an acrobat is going to be non-stick pan the entire game and decode the whole way. 100% cipher decoding speed without probably even looking at the hunter's face 50% of the time. So
yeah. I think this is one of those things where I think I'm noticing a lot. It's like the tier list itself doesn't exactly just only consider like the hunter, the survivor abilities, or I guess like this is the differentiator of mine, because mine is just pure ability basis. It's like, what can your abilities do, and how consistent and how effective are they at doing that thing? And if it's really high consistency and really high effectiveness, then I rate them high. Versus it's not just, you know, how effective this is, it's more so of also how much of a team player the character is, because this is by no means saying Acrobat is a bad character. It's just, if you pick him, he's literally doing nothing. Like, he's legitimately doing nothing for the team. Like, there is
where's the use of like 6 bombs when the hunter doesn't even see you?
Exactly. Like, one of them being that you have to, you know, one of them you have to decode a cipher and a half. Another one you have to actually rescue. And then another one you actually have to kite. And if you're playing Acrobat and you spawn in a disgusting area, like, oh, I don't know, say Acrobat 4th stop, do we really think the hunter's gonna chase you? Hey, do we really think the hunter's gonna chase you at Acrobat 4th stop? Like, be for real. Like, come on.
Nah, I'm heading to haunted house to catch the Dakota in there. No.
Yeah, exactly. So this isn't really a more so of a, oh my god, Acrobat sucks thing. He fell off. It's like, it's just he does nothing. He like, if it's not a kiting, he does nothing. And I can respect that. You know, I can respect that in terms for CN. Me personally, I think I would still put him bare minimum, I guess, in A tier if I had to compromise. I would just put him in like A, not even like A plus in terms of because including his support, more or less. But oh my god, the concept of Acrobat in B tier, man. Jesus.
Oh yeah. Okay, next one is probably also going to piss some people off. Fire Investigator. Where do I even start? Okay, first of all, look at his garbage, god-awful stats. Like, those stats are actually terrible. If it wasn't for the fact that this tier list adjusts for, like, 100+ star rank level, this character would probably be at the bottom of B- tier or C tier.
Jesus Christ.
His pick rate is very low at only 0.8%, which is 44th place. His win rate is also very low at 18.9%, which is 39th place. His raw rate is pretty low at 28.6%, which is 33rd place. He doesn't get banned at all, and his S1 knowledge points value is very low at 14k 574, which is only 42nd place. And his A100 knowledge points value ranking is even lower at only 9,249, which is 47th place. This just goes to show that purely using like theoretical stuff to imagine how Fire Investigator works in a match just doesn't really match up to how realistically he performs in actual ranked matches, because the stats really say it all. His containment, you know, granted, has high performance floor with like by like road blocking hunters using airbags and stuff, and is a decent performance floor when looping in the same area if the hunter is stupid and doesn't break the airbags. That is, he has a high chance of like reusing the same airbag in those cases, and can gain a lot of distance. His support has like a decent performance floor by allowing teammates to bounce off airbags to gain distance. If the teammate knows how to use them, which here it's assuming that they do because it's 100+ stars. The Fire Investigator can also use airbags as roadblocks and impede hunters and stop them from reaching the teammate who needs support easily, but it's pretty difficult to carry out nonetheless. He has great performance ceiling if paired with balloon struggling strategies in very few selected math positions. A classic one being Leo second story. Yeah. The airbag gimmick counters certain hunters that cannot easily attack within certain states. Like Naiad in her swimming state, or Breaking Wheel in the wheel form. Yeah, they have to first change back to regular state and then attack and then, you know, do whatever they need to do. But like this back and forth stalls for a good bit of time. However, one of his most important weaknesses is that he only has 2 items, and if the hunter destroys them, yeah, I guess he kites for a decently long time, but like he can't pick up any items even after the airbags are destroyed. It's not even like a running out of items thing. It's straight up a cannot pick up additional items. That is much worse. Like, that means that he cannot get any more items from chests, which is a serious hindrance in like wither back and forth map pressure situations. His support also relies on careful coordination and map positioning, and he has no heart harassment abilities, which means that like this character is just overall, his entire kit is not suitable to the rank environment at all. So yeah, just
this hurts me because I know, like, obviously, you know, I was at a time first fire on the server before, so this hurts me. This hurts me, little heart, but this is one of those things where unfortunately I can't disagree because I kind of dropped him for a reason, because I like what does he do if it's not for like an Ivy specific matchup kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, back when Ivy was, you know, like played very often, he's used as a counter pick character in like round 1 tourneys and stuff. But like in rank, you know, not everyone plays Ivy. Ivy often gets banned and stuff. And also, Previously, well, now that's still the case. But he starts with a 95% decoding speed, right? So that's like 5% slower than other regular survivors. Previously, this is like more or less ignorable considering how like supposedly strong his first kite is. But now it's like if you get chased, you're not gonna be able to use that extra 10% you gain when near the hunter to decode anyway, if the hunter doesn't let you go. And if you don't get chased, you're gonna suffer from that -5 decoding debuff the entire way. So yeah, this is one more thing that wasn't directly mentioned here, but also hinders him from being placed higher.
I still had my goat in A plus tier, but he might be dropping down to A minus or A because the current rank meta is obviously just not for him. And obviously, it's a thing since day one that I've said, even when I was playing Fire and Fire was meta. Him not being able to pick up items, whether it be from like a chest or like something like that, it just hurts him a lot. Like, I'm sorry, with every hunter that is literally always playing the same, being tactical wither 4 kill, tactical wither 3 kill, you need to be able to deal with that in some fashion, or you are doing nothing. You
Yeah,
just,
without your airbags, he's literally nothing. Like, can't pick up items, just purest of whiteboards, has nothing.
you're just a genuinely nothing, non-existing character. So it's like, why do you exist, kind of thing. All right, and now we have hit the bottom 3 for the B plus tier, and kicking off the bottom 3 for B plus, a kind of a controversial pick, especially for NA standards, with you know, much recent drama with buffs and changes. We got Perfumer. So Perfumer is actually like right here at the bottom of B plus, which is kind of crazy for like NAU standards. But going on to her stats, she has a pick rate of 2.6% coming in at 12th, a win rate of 19.3% coming in at 34th, a draw rate of 29.6% coming in at 18th, a ban rate of 0.1% coming in at 36th, and then her S1 point values capping off at 18k, practically flat, just, you know, 18,014 points coming in at 30th, and then her A100 at 11k 241 coming in at 12th, which is actually fairly high. So Perfumer is going to ruffle some feathers, and I'm going to be honest, while I don't think I would put her this low, I definitely don't think she deserves to be any higher, because I've seen people say that she's like S tier and this and broken. Like, no, she's not. I'm sorry, she's not. The buff, it was great on paper, not that good in actuality. It's just one of those cases. That is just the reality. Buff was great on paper, not that good in reality. That's just how it is. That's just it, at least how I see it. So moving on to her strengths. Obviously, we all know how Perfumer works. When she tanks a hit, she puts the hunter in attack recovery, which is obviously a very good thing. You know, we love putting the hunter in attack recovery because it works out nicely for us. Putting the hunter in attack recovery obviously gives you some time to, you know, move around, go do some things that you want to do. The short backswing after using Perfume makes it that she doesn't waste most of the hit acceleration, meaning that obviously, you know, when you get hit and then you perfume back, there's not too much of an animation to the point where your actual like speed boost from getting hit is wasted. It's just more of a like, you lose like maybe half a second of speed boost, and that's perfectly fine. She has a high performance ceiling as well that stems from her specialization in encountering certain hunter abilities, or in this case, gimmicks as well. So like, think of, you know, one of her most notorious gimmicks being Priestess global portals with the perfume, where you go through global, you perfume on and then you perfume on the other side, go through again, perfume back, and, you know, stuff like that. You know, things like that are what typically help her shine very, very well. Her buffs, obviously they addressed some level of her problem of not being able to kite when she gets hit, when she's injured, more specifically. Obviously now she has like that 2.5 seconds of a shield that like consumes a hit entirely, but as we'll get to, it's really not that great in actual practice. And then obviously she has good kiting performance in 2 story areas. She just gets to a drop down perfume and the hunter is forced to wait there like a chud. Like the hunter can't really do much about a perfumer wanting to just camp upstairs for God knows how long. That is just reality. That's just reality. Now, onto her glaring weaknesses. The buff barely solves her problem, and she still has a very low room for error for using the perfume. This is what we were talking about. While in concept, being able to perfume back if the hunter misses a swing, or like, you know, baits the perfume or something, or excuse me, or if you're half health and you get that shield, when you're using the perfume for stuff like that, you use the perfume like at half health, for example, to gain distance on the hunter and force them to pick whether to chase you or to commit to waiting out the perfume while you get distance. By doing that, you're not gaining anything out of the perfume buff because the shield is not going to buy you enough time to even reach an area point blank, period. Unless you're like tight kiting at a pallet already, you're not really gaining anything from that perfumer buff. Like you just aren't. Like you're not gaining many things from it. You just kind of sit there and take it. Like it's really weird, I'm not gonna lie. It kind of doesn't do anything for the most part in my experience and how it's been used. Like it's just, yeah, like I could rant on and on about how the buff honestly does damn near nothing. It's like a nice little niche, but nothing crazy. And then, again, obviously, her kiting gives the hunter presence, which makes the mid to late game way harder on survivors than it needs to be. Obviously, especially, again, one of these things where, like, you know, we're in an insolence meta. So that means feeding presence on top of, you know, being in a meta where a lot of hunters bring insolence kind of fucks over the team a lot in the long run, which is something you do kind of need to somewhat respect, especially because it's not like even, like, her perfumes can be used entirely for her teammates. It's just for her and her only. So it's like, it's not like a Seer Owl is like, okay, it's feeding presence, but it's body blocking a hit specifically for a teammate. So that way then they can still live. It's just, she's feeding presence and she's doing what anyone else can do. Like literally anyone else that's higher than her can do.
Yeah. Perfumer is a classic example of a character that is popular, but is relatively weak. She is, at the end of the day, a pure containment character. And also because the shield duration gets reduced when she's near a tier, she doesn't qualify as a rescuer. So, like it's questionable whether bringing Tide on her is actually going to be that good. The shield is like nice, I guess. It prevents like issues where previously, immediately after like you clicking the perfume the second time and getting back to the original position, she might get originally hit. Now she at least has a bit of like protection to like enter a pallet that is nearby or something, but it definitely is not something that allows her to transition from one cutting area to another. Issues such as no rebound kite and, you know, weak detention, weak against detention, weak when, you know, at half health, those things have not been solved yet. You might think that, even at half health or detention, like the 3.3 second shield still allows her to tank a hit. But if you compare this like shield to Puppeteer, Perfumer's shield is like pathetic. It does barely anything. So yeah, if you want to play Perfumer, you better hope that you play her perfectly. At the start, you do manage to like properly tank the hits and heal with the 3 perfumes, and that the hunter isn't some kind of like chip hunter or stun hunter that can like truly mess up your perfumes.
Yeah, that just sums it up. Yeah, that's just, unfortunately speaking, that is kind of just where Perfumer falls down on the ladder. Like she can't do much. Just unfortunately speaking, even with like as good as the buff is, she can't do that much. That's kind of just reality, guys. That's just it. The buff sounded great on paper, but you know, unfortunately, life had other plans. But moving on.
Next, we have Patient. Patient fundamentally is actually very similar to Perfumer in that both are pure containment characters with 3 items. So Patient, however, in terms of popularity, is nowhere near as as popular as Perfumer. Patient's pick rate in P tier is one of the lowest, actually, only 0.6%, which is 47th place. And his other 2 very low stats are his knowledge points. S1 knowledge points being only at 14k, which is 43rd place, and A100 knowledge points being at 9k, 189, which is 48th place, literally at the bottom of like all survivors. His win rate is pretty low also at only 19.4%, which is 33rd place, but his draw rate is decently high at 29.7%. This is also a character that gets banned literally 0% of the time. After the series of, I wouldn't say buffs, but more like optimizations where like hunter attacks can no longer like interrupt the starting animation of the hook, and also the starting animation of the hook has also been reduced. Now it's really short. It's like 0.25 seconds. Hunters can still use skills to interrupt the hook, but A, that's very difficult considering how short the force ring is, and two, it still returns patient with the hook if it's interrupted with a skill. So yeah, in terms of that perspective, the consistency of the hooks has increased a lot. Hooks as a tool that can gain a lot of distance gives a patient high performance ceiling, especially in like special hook spots. One of the famous ones being like the opening on Leo 2 story, where he can just directly hook out of the window on the other side. That's a really strong hook position there. Um, Hunters who are unable to interrupt patient with like regular attacks during the hook animation, and also the hook doesn't get consumed when it's interrupted. It like truly raises this performance floor. It's not as easy to screw up anymore. As a rescuer, which yeah, that's true. He ultimately does have a rescuer label. Host can deal with most forms of interception. He can't stay in the air the whole time like a toy merchant, but it's good enough to avoid most forms of interception. He also has good potential when kiting alongside Psychologist, but considering where Psychologist is placed on the tier list here, which we're gonna get to later, this is almost a non-factor. Previously, when those two characters were meta, like they can benefit each other, and Patient plus Psychologist is a pretty valid pick. But now, that's almost a non-factor, as is stated here in the document. In terms of weaknesses, hooks still require like toll structures and have limited versatility. You still have to like aim. When the hunter is like right on your face, it's difficult to like in the heat of the moment use like a perfect hook that truly gets you the most distance. He is vulnerable against hunters that move fast because they can catch up with you even if patient uses hook, and can only really just kind of bully hunters that walk on barefoot. He's vulnerable against warp, and it just straight up gets into the patient's face. So overall, in terms of functionality, it's the hooks are like kind of below average. Um, in addition, this character has near zero supporting capabilities. The positive part being the pairing with Psychologist, but as was stated previously, that's almost a non-factor. If patient doesn't bring Tide Turner, he's a non-stick pan. If he does bring Tide Turner, his own kiting becomes an issue. This is a repeating trend among many of the pure containment characters we've covered so far. If you want to strive for wins, we can't allow for non-stick pans on the team. And yeah, this is also supported by the fact that his win rate is pretty low. So
yeah, unfortunately speaking, I can't really disagree again, because I'm someone who kind of like views Patient on a somewhat like I give Patient some level of credit. I don't hate the guy. I'm just like, yeah, it's honestly kind of like the Acrobat thing again, where it's just like, it's not like Patient is necessarily a bad character. It's just more of a, if he's not fulfilling this like hyper specific niche, what is he doing? Like if he's not rescuing, like just everything I said about Acrobat earlier, practically. Like Patient himself intrinsically is not bad. But what does bro do? Like if he's not gonna go rescue, what does bro do? Like name
at least Acrobat can carry out some like very niche and like support in specific situations. Patient has zero support.
Exactly.
So,
Unless we want to count hooking to a body block, right? But yeah, so that's just it. I can't really, no real disagreements on that. But moving on to the final person in the B+ tier, we have Cowboy, a harasser. Yeah. So, Cowboy starts off with a peak tier pick rate of 1.3% coming in at 37th, a win rate of 20.8% coming in at 14th, a draw rate of 26.4, really low, 26.4% coming in at 46th, a ban rate of just 0.3% coming in at 25th. first, with then his S1 capping out at just 15k 213, placing him at 39th, and A100 capping out at 10k 659, placing him at 27th. Now, I've shared my feelings on Cowboy himself, on what he does and how he is. And I have never truly been the highest on Cowboy in terms of what he can do and what he does do. And it is solely because of the fact that his harassment is just mid. In my opinion, from like a harasser player that's been playing harassing for literal eons, his harassing is just mid. It doesn't actually do anything aside from just gimmick the hunter out for like a couple minutes. But other than that, it just genuinely does nothing. While his support, like while someone's kiting, can be annoying and, you know, actually like somewhat disgusting, I won't lie. That's all there is to it. Like genuinely, that's legitimately all there is to it. Nothing else aside from that. But aside from that, to keep on going on his strengths, the lasso allows for good distance gaining and has good durability. Speed boost gives sufficient room for arrow, and he has very strong kiting among support survivors, which is true. His kiting is probably his best asset, despite him being a support character. His kiting is definitely where he shines the most. The short lasso force swing is difficult for hunters to react at close to mid distances. Protecting survivors that are alive can cause key hunter skills to miss and can consistently stall for time when balloon harassing. Yeah, like the actual act of balloon harassing in itself is actually pretty good. It's just when we get to like how his harassing works is where obviously is like I think where people like start to lose it a little bit. Successful mind gaming can allow lasso balloon survivors to live. Lasso the hunter counters interceptions. You know, if the hunter cuts you off, you just lasso over them, and now they have to play a game of catch up with you. And then obviously, you know, his ability to rescue with the lasso means that he can, technically speaking, get injureless rescues if the hunter is a little bit, albeit off guard. And of course, his recent changes being that he has a toggle of whether he wants to lasso onto a pallet, survivor, or both, now gives him way more flexibility and less room for error, and gives him more room for error, more room for error in terms of his support. However, his weaknesses: kiting somewhat lacks versatility due to reliance on pallets and cipher machines, which is how, you know, he would want to lasso get speed boost, because he can't actually do that on windows. Hunters on open ground can be very risky, and he can get occasionally screwed over by random lasso misses. Yes, random. Sometimes the lasso logic is a little bit funky, and even if you're dead on the target, if the hunter like sidesteps a little bit, it could just completely fuck over the lasso, and you don't get your lasso now. That does just unfortunately happen sometimes. Another bit of his weaknesses: 10% minus 10% decoding debuff limits the character's strength, but actually supporting can easily make him injured, and then he cannot freely attempt to protect teammates when needing to rescue. Yeah, he can't exactly want to do what he wants to do because he is kind of restricted in terms. I'm honestly kind of shocked they didn't bring up the fact that like his gimmick of harassment being like the struggling thing, it's not the greatest thing in hindsight, in my opinion.
That's also true, yeah.
Like, the gimmick of how he harasses being, like, the little struggle thing, it's really not the greatest thing in hindsight. It's really not.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of it does nothing.
I definitely agree with what Zeus said previously about, like, this character's containment is pretty good. Like, he has a support and containment label, with the support label being the larger label, but in fact, I think those two labels should be reversed. He's stronger at kiting than he is at supporting.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to kiting, ultimately, he still has, like, a 10% decoding debuff. And if he does go support, well, the support has like too many limitations. Balloon harassment really can only work in like certain like dead corners of the map that are far away from like chairs. That way he can consistently stall for time. And usually, like, you know, after lassoing someone, it's just he easily gets injured, despite the speed boost that he gets from, you know, lassoing someone. And you're trying to lasso someone who's alive is like very difficult to carry out in actual rank matches, because lassoing living survivors is already something that requires a lot of precision, and like, you know, terrain, but like the terrain being just good enough for the lasso to, you know, carry out its effect. And, you know, asking teammates to be at a specific location when a hunter is chasing behind them in rank matches without proper communication is very difficult.
Yep. That's not even to begin the fact that as I was talking about his harassment earlier, as hard as it is to even like get a living survivor off, when you're trying to get for a survivor that's on balloons, if
Mhm.
he's still likely to get hit anyway, it's not like the survivor that got rescued off balloons is able to get off scot-free and like they're, at least, the cowboy took a hit, but I can go somewhere. Because if cowboy takes a hit, the survivor who he was supporting for is still on the ground eating shit.
Yeah, that's true.
They're still on the ground eating shit. It's not like, oh, well, the cowboy took a hit, but I can do this now. Like, no, it's like the cowboy took a hit, now he's injured unnecessarily, and I can't actually do anything. That's
Yeah.
that's just it. So
It's also the fact that just lassoing someone who's balloon only increases like struggling percentage by 10%. So for it to be effective, Cowboy might have to like harass for like another once or twice. But then in order to like get away from the tear, you probably have to run into like open ground with no pallets and kiting areas far away from the tear, in which case Cowboy gets easily injured as well. So
yeah, it's just a lot of unnecessary factors, and his overall kind of identity being mid now. It just really sucks. Like, because I know they wanted to adjust for one tap, but hey, you can't win them all.
yeah.